No way. No way we do this. I reckon that one sounds good. Wait. Fantastic 5-0. Oh shit. Includes one base 0, pick 1 of 5, rated E6 or higher. Oh, I don't know. So it's between basically, I think you kind of got to do. So this one sounds good. This is going to sort us out for a bit of fodder as well. We get 50 rare gold items rated 80 or higher. 1 minute wildcard mode and 1 guaranteed wildcard. See, it's not bad. Or we do the hero pack. What do you reckon, guys? What do you reckon, guys? It's between these two. Are we going for wildcard foundation or hero player pick? What do you reckon? I think that one's good. I think the wildcard foundation looks good value personally. That's dirt cheap. You get a lot of stuff for 1,000. Hero, those receive the heroes and Caesars. 200k pack hero will be just as expensive. Yeah, you know it. Hero. You guys just want the conclusion. I don't know, the heroes basically going to be shit. You can keep the heroes though, so you like something. Oh no, you can keep the winter wildcard player item as well. So this includes and the 50 gold you get to keep. You could pack multiple winter wildcards from this pack. I mean, I'm going for this. Look it, we're going for this. We're going for the wildcard one, right? Ready? Let's do this one, guys. Come on. Oh no, so black. Not bad actually. Not bad. What's behind you? What's behind you, mate? Double walk out. What's behind you? Bernardo Silva. Okay, that's decent. Hold on, we've done well out there already. Because to get second, you only get 50 plus 80 plus. So the fact that we're 88 and an 88 is actually pretty good. And now we're going to guarantee to have a winter wildcard behind it. So we could actually get something good there. Right, here we go. Let's have a look. Asano, team of the week, cheeky team of the week in there as well. That's always good, mate. They're worth 30, 40 G's at the moment, so that's a good call. Cruz is playing. This is a good pack. This was a good pack. That 84's coming out the wazoo. Considering it was just guaranteed to get 50 players that are 80 plus, I'd say this is a very good pack so far, even without the winning wild card. Right, let's see who we've got though in terms of the winning wild card then. Let's see who we've got. Easy. Hey, he's actually pretty shit. So okay. I thought he looked pretty good though. 99 past 82. He kind of looks sick, but he's so cheap. 85 rated easy. Oh, fair enough. Oh no. So we've got an easy there. That's the actual one we've got. He's dirt cheap, so that was good. Right then, let's get these loans out of the way. Black as well and stuff. And you know what? That was a dud pack still. Even with that cash easy there. That was a dud pack, I think. Look at all this fodder that we got from it. All those ones. That was worth doing, definitely. That was definitely worth doing. I like it. Do you know what that means though? We've got all this fodder there that we kind of just have to do something with now. What do we do with this fodder? Once again, keep smashing the subscribe, keep smashing the like, double tap the screen on second. Give us a raw follow if you haven't done so. LeBron James, Merry Christmas from the UK, says on TikTok. Thank you, LeBron. Cheers, dude. Right back at you as well. Now, Alex Walker, the global one, scout pro. He's swapping juice. Xbox is frozen. Oh, no, there it goes. Okay, so we just got to use these guys in some sort of SBC. Let's do that real quick. Okay, so these are the ones that we've got to use. So Bernardo Silva, Oblak, Ochoa, and Kramerich. Hey, have a good one, Aaron Bainbridge. Enjoy your Christmas, you legend. Stay classy, we know that you will. Have a great evening, dude. 83 plus times 10, yeah, we could chuck him in there. Where's the 85 plus player pick as well, which probably makes more sense to chuck 288s into, to be fair, because it's an 84 rated squad. We'll do that. We'll do that because let's go with banana, silver, and black was the other one, wasn't it? And then I've already forgotten the 281s, but somebody will tell me. Runny Cunt Game, thank you very much for the super chat. Super chat. It's super Runny Cunt Game, man. Go on, my son. Cheers for that, Runnington. What a legend. Merry Christmas to you too. I bet New York's an awesome city to be in at Christmas time. It always looks like it, like in the movies and stuff. Seems like they go ham at Christmas time in New York City. Do they? I think it's a nice place to be for Christmas. And the bells of the NYPD choir are singing do-re-mi, and the bells are ringing out for Christmas Day. You scumbag, you maggot, you cheap lousy scumbag. Merry Christmas to you, Ronnie, anyway, broski. Who was the two players I needed to put in there? 81s. One of them was called. Oh, the cello, yeah. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, sweet, that should be good enough. Yeah, there's 85 up there, but just wanted to get rid of those yeah, mediocre strike right there, but let's open up this rest, this 900 points down something. Right, what did you figure out? The nano pack that's alright for what it is for 150 coins. What can we afford? We can afford this wildcard essentials pack, which includes 5, 15 I might just rinse them. Only 900 left, so we don't really have much choices anyway. That's our only choice. Our only choice is quite simply to open up. Yeah. Okay, so we open up this one for 500, and then we open up this one for. Oh, that's a loaded one actually. Cash that. We open up this one and probably that one as well. Okay, sweet. Let's do this. Hey, Marky Harris, you legend. What's going on? Merry Primbo, dude. Good evening. Will print Dutch Codex P45 and beautiful sepia. Hey, here's a question for you. Seeing as you said good evening, would you have Unai Emery at United at the end of the season, or even before the end of the season? Smash a one in the chat. You would, because he's one of the candidates, isn't he? That's quite likely to be in the line. And I don't think he'll leave Villa anytime soon. But let's say Villa don't get Champions League football, Man United do, which I know at this moment in time is tough. Surely Man United's a much bigger club that if they came knocking, it would be too big of a job to say no to. You would think. Quality manager, yeah, definitely is a good quality manager. To be fair, one says Alex Watt, beat Adam as well. Right, anyway, so I'm going to open up this. We've got 900, so which one do I do? The icebreaker small players pack plus. Don't like the sound of that. No, okay, right, let's do this. I'm going to do this one. Wildcard essentials.
Oh, really.
She comes out the time. She's not the worst thing, she's an 88. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I think wait and see how he does. He's obviously doing very badly at the moment, but just wait till the end of the season. If he's still done badly then, I think his season's already done. If he's still doing badly then, sack him and get somebody else. If he's not, he might come and run one. Oh, it's so annoying. Okay, let's go do the.
Yo! Go on, man.
No, I'll just do the 80 plus times 10 as a final thing. Thank you, Savanier and Endler. Thank you very much, A2s. I appreciate it. G says, fancy a game, bro. Maybe in a bit, actually, Wolster. Go on then. I'll play you after this, mate. No worries. I'm just might have to go for a cheeky cigar after this, though. But after that, I'll definitely give you a cheeky little game. So why not, eh? Why not? Right, team week overall. I can't stay on too late tonight, though, because I've got to go to my sister's tomorrow, as I say, reasonably early. So I'll have to just do that and then do that. Yeah. I've got a 10-year-old battery, and I'll be happy to administer it, no problem. That's what we want. We might get something back on Christmas. Be on your head, lad. If that's what you want, sir. I do use quick cell recovery, yeah. But I sort of trained myself not to use it until like the end of the month now, and then go back and choose the most expensive ones because I did a bad habit of just like, choosing shit ones, and then you realise you've only got 5 picks for the whole bloody month. So yeah, what have I been doing here? Alright, I've got that team of the week in there. Include Endler. Is she a centre back? No, she's goalkeeper, is she? Yeah. And then who was the other one again? Savanier, you said. It's Savoy action. Yeah, a bit of Sam action. Okay. Oi, Savoy. Right, nice, yeah. And then Spring Fit on top of it. The third rating G-Wolf, though, I don't make you feel bad, mate. I might have to not trounce you as badly as I could do now. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean, G-Wolf fan? Dude. Trying to get inside my head, aren't you? Make me feel sorry for you, G-Wolf, so I don't destroy you as bad. I can see partial game, man. You know? Oh, dude. Well, much love to you anyway, Wolves. Let's get some love in there for Wolves. Things will pick up, mate. Trust. It's shit here, hasn't it? I think that's the limit there. You saw from Okay, let's open this G-Wolf, then I'm actually just going to have a cheeky cigarette, and then you're going down, mate. Then you're going down if you're prepared to wait 5+ minutes. Do you know what I mean? If you're prepared to wait, I'll take you down, sir. Oh, I will. Right, oh shit, we still got 400 points left as well. 400 points, what does that get us? An Icebreaker Atomic Players Pack, the special item equal to 4 gold. That sounds sharp. We kind of got to do this Nano instead, that gives you 11 rare player items, 80 or higher. What's the good about this Icebreaker Atomic rare? Special players pack will give you 4 rare golds. I don't know, guys. You know what? That sounds shit on paper. Also, 1 additional 2 rare gold players pack. That sounds shite. I say we just do the 150 one here. Do you reckon, guys? Well, then, let's have a vote actually. Icebreaker Atomic or Wildcard Nano? Because we can only do one or the other, and we've only got 400 points. You would think this one, but then again, I don't know. And that is tradeable. So 2 says I'm calling it TV32. Nano says United Life. Nano action. Nano. What? Calling Austin. Come in, Austin. Walk. Calling Austin. Alright, we'll do the Nano then. I think Nano looks better anyway.
Generally, canvas.
Yeah, I know you'd be about to hand out some Christmas dickings. Some proper Christmas Charles dickings, you know what I mean? sent it back to SG from Dante. No? Hernandez. Pretty shit back there, guys, to be fair, but that's it. I think we've been talking ourselves for points now. Yeah, I mean, that's very much easier. But hey, look, sometimes pretty dash back open tonight. 87 their counter with Beasley. 87 my number account with T on the line. Archie, yeah, fair enough. It wasn't our night for Beck. I mean, we did okay, didn't we? We did okay. We got that Morgan. She was alright to pull, but other than that, not very good. Got to be honest. Super low gives you 99 games right there. Actually, I'm just going to destroy G-Wolf real quick now. They can rage quit and then I'll go for a cigarette. That makes sense. Okay, G-Wolf, right, invite me when you're ready, bro. I'll back you up good styling. Let's back you up. It only take 2 minutes. Let's put a rage quit at 4-0 in place, though, G-Wolf, please. Or maybe 5-0, because it's late, right? It's late. So if you beat me by 5, I will quit. And if I start beating you by 5, you must quit. Those are the rules. Are you happy with those rules, Matt? You happy with those rules? I hope you best be happy with those rules, sir. I'm not entering into any game without those rules in place. Easy beats just done it for us a friend, by the way, guys. Oh, are you there, Wooster? I didn't think you down there, Wooster. Father Ted, what's going on, Father Ted, in TikTok? Brilliant, he said. My lovely, lovely, lovely horse, my lovely horse, running through the field. Where are you going with your fetlocks blowing in the wind? I want to shower you with sugar lumps and ride you over fences. I want to polish your hooves every single day and take you to the horse dentist. My lovely, lovely, lovely horse, my lovely horse. Nice one, Gio, I've done that now, dude. Running through the field. Would you like a cup of tea, Father? Oh, Father, would you like a cup of tea, would you? Go on now, Father. A lovely cup of tea. I actually will have a cup of tea now, Father. Go on. Go on. Go on now, Father. You will have a cup of tea. Go on now, Father. Go on, go on, go on, go on, go on, go on. You will have a cup of tea now, Father. Go on, go on, go on, go on, go on, go on, go on. Have a cup of tea, Father. What did you get, Mr. P, for Christmas? That'll be telling Vendor. I'll tell you right now, boss. Yeah. Father Ted's absolutely passing in there. I've gutted than the main guy. What's his name? Is it Dermot Modern or something? What's his name? I've forgotten that. Crikey, you know. Because the main guy that died when he passed away was loved that show. And then he did 3 seasons of it. He passed away. Gosh, didn't it? Oh, he was inviting me. You're gonna get punked, mate. Oh, you're getting punked, mate. I hear you're a racist now, Father. Oh, I hear you're a racist now, Father. Tommy's pushing the sack button. Hey, fair enough, Mark. I mean, you've been saying this for a long time, to be fair to you. And it's only making more and more sense what you're saying, to be fair, as the time goes on. So, you got that Smith in an unprintable pack on the score. Nice, Jonathan. That's amazing. So, Gio, if you didn't hear me, mate, we're implementing a 5-0 down and rage quit rule. So, yeah, just to save time. Listen, Punky, well, here we go, then, lad. What? What? Gio, what? What? Is this? Oh, hang on a sec. Gio, have you selected the wrong team, mate? Before we start. Have you selected the wrong team? You can't be coming up with bloody with this team, bro. You've got to tell me you've got a shit team, bro. This team's gash. Okay, you have got a 694 Haaland, but what the fuck? The rest of the team's absolutely awful. You're going to get battered, bro. You are literally going to get destroyed. It's not even going to be fun. What's going on there, dude? Gash, dude, your backline is atrocious. Oh, shit! Fair play to you, son. Fair play to you, will get that shot off on target there with Haaland. Yeah, that's weird. OHB says he had a better team a couple of months ago. That's why I was asking if he selected the wrong team. I'm sure he did. Maybe he just like put a ball into a couple of players or something like that. But it does look pretty sus. Pretty sus team. Next time, G, we'll just use whatever loads you've got in your club, mate. Just because I have got like an opening team. I feel bad coming up against you on like red card FC team with this looking shitty goal and looking back line you've got, dude. Just use whatever loads you've got and get a raw team out next time. Although, to be fair, I'm not winning yet, am I? Right, go on then. There's the 1-0 getting switched to Ronaldo. Yeah, jingle blood. You like this one, didn't you? I think that might be a record for you, though. We're not talking about you in the bedroom either. Because we know the record for that's only 2 minutes. But the record in this game, I reckon that's the longest you've got without conceding against me, man. Put that out there. Decent offside. Oh! Nice try. I thought it was in, dude. I really did. I thought you got me there, dude. Mate, unlucky. I was unlucky. Yeah, missing me on Xbox Series S, so unfortunately can't play on Xbox One again because I've only got the next gen version of the game. It's not cross gen, it's only cross platform, so you can't play Series One. Sorry, you can't play Xbox One to Series S rights, unfortunately. Plus, I'm not even playing more games tonight. I'm actually shattered, man. Oh, I've got to get up and meet the early tomorrow. Making me off a little bit. Good finish. Dirty little finish. Jerome Delons. Yes, mate. Very Noel to your boss. Ça va bien, merci. Alright, G, we'll play for a rage quit roll. I don't want to sit here, banging 10 goals and everything. I want to get off to sleep myself. Only Fools and Horses onesie are amazing, dude. Stick a pony in. And if you want the best ones, but you don't ask questions, then brother, I'm your man. But where it all comes from is a mystery. It's like the changing of the seasons of the time of the sea. But he's the one who's driving me to sex. Why do you only fools and horses? La 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 la. La 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 la. That's actually my favourite show of all time. That and Red Dwarf. Those two. Yes, come on. Only fools is go to. Man, it's probably going to be about 10:45, I reckon. 10:45 p.m. in the evening. I'm not going to do anything in the daytime anyway. Just the nighttime stream. So yeah, 10:45 p.m. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, click the bell icon so you don't miss notifications. We'll be on tomorrow night about 10:45 p.m. Christmas Day stream peaks. Oh hell yeah! Well, we'll be scoring more sick goals like this. Young Ones is a banger as well, Stephen. Yeah, you just need to get a new defence to you, basically. That's all, mate. That old defence is just not up to mustard these days. Either that or just playing with a set of lone players. I mean, that'd be better. Set of lone players, DC lone players like Pele and shit. Get the job done. No, I won't be watching these films. I haven't watched it for years. It used to be part of the Christmas, routine to watch these films over Christmas, but I haven't watched it in years and years and years. Oh, it's brilliant, isn't it, Chote? Absolutely lovely. Which one are you watching? Marky Harris, thank you so much for the £2. Super chat, super Marky Harris. He says cheeky donation aspirin fund for Mr. Good Evening. Cheers for that, dude. That was very handy. Oh shit, he's through. No, he's not. But yeah, hey, great. Thank you very much for that, Mark. That'll come down to dude. I actually get me a few packets of that. That's been cheap. So sort out there. Thank you. Cheers. Yeah, Village is still a beast going free. I'm telling you, it's still great for me anyway. I'm sure sooner or later it's going to become obsolete, but right now I'm liking the bit of B direction. Fair play, G-Wolf. Fair play that. 5-0 before half time. It's a GG's situation. Next time you play with the Raw, filthy lone team there. I don't mind. That's awesome, G-Wolf. GG. Can we get some GG's in there for G-Wolf? We have back in there. Sorry. Sorry, Wolfster. I'm sorry, man. But I've only got one setting, and that's seek and destroy. You know what I mean? You just had Van Basten 92 for a 10 coin back. That's amazing from a 10 coin back, bro. That is sick. Pick these TV shows. 1.5 only fools and horses, Christmas for my wife and kids. Yeah, I mean, I like them all, but it would be only fools and less than than my wife and kids in last place. But they're all good though. Pumped in, says Stephen. GG Suburban Chris. Thank you, Kingslayer. Thank you, Gilvani. Yeah, you know it. But GG's anyway for Wolves. To be fair to him, he's using the gas team there. If he was using the boss team, I'm sure it'd be much closer things. And next time we'll play the closer team. And I've got a sick team. He needs to get like some low Maldinis and shit in there. Oh well, I thought I got you with that chip goal. Yeah, it turned out that it was wide of the stick, G-Wolf. And that's not how goals work, mate. Callum causes G-Wolf play me. Great stuff, though. Absolutely banging stuff there, guys. I'm loving it. We're pretty much going to have to wrap it up, though, because it's late now. We're going to have to wrap it up. But it's been a cracking stream this one, guys. Merry Christmas, everyone. Thanks for seeing out the Christmas morning into Christmas morning with me. Pretty sensational streams. I do appreciate it. Legends of the force.
Alright,
Absolute legends you are.
why I was fucking. What's wrong with this dog, man? Can you not just be quiet? Can you not just keep yourself quiet? Fucking turn your head sideways. What? I can't just keep yourself quiet. Yeah, I mean, you've not sat down on the street. I was doing something. Innit? You're fucking annoying, bro. I'm usually just sat in this house in silence, quiet, or musical. I'm not usually looking at something fucking turning up the whole place. And the truth is, I don't like it. You piss me off. If you put your mouth in that, stop licking me. That's nasty, bro. Every time I say don't lick me, you look sad, innit? I don't put you on nasty. Look, that's why I don't want you to lick me. I'm fucking licking your balls, bro. I ain't licking your fucking self. I want you to lick me. Yeah, nasty. Ugh. I was like, yeah, for it. Can't do it. It doesn't matter, you could be using low for oh, yeah, who are you looking at? Let's go. Merry Christmas. Let's go through who the Hoopman prod. Oh, yes. Cheers, guys. Sub 2, Janta, Jesus, Predator, Stephen, OHB, William. Oh, nice. Just let you know I'm going to put the best of 2023 compilation on Janta. Watch this, Max 85. Oh, that duplicate French guy that I just got. Alex Maximum. I've got his 87 anyway. Yeah, so some duplicate on Max 85, 86. Yeah, 86. I've already got an 87 version of it. If he ever put, I know, watch him. Is he supposed to ever put his mouth in that coke? I knew that was some shit that I already had. I already got 87 maximum, and I ended up with 87, whatever that is. this stream up, guys. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, and Kick at Flying Pig United. Check out the website, flyingpigunited.com. Check out the gaming channel, Flying Pig.
And it doesn't even fit in this.
Subscribe if you're a smash the bell icon.
I would never use.
It's loads and loads. I will see you tomorrow.
That was me. What was I doing? I was just thinking. Really, not even feeling anything again. I just want to go and blue you to come back. I should have dug it. Excellent. Yeah. I go with that one. Who doesn't have bed with? Who doesn't wet the bed? Let me try this bed. Stop looking. I don't want to be living. I don't know what more to do. You know. I said we're gonna have to tie your mouth up or something. No.
of his brother Larry because Larry was, again, socially awkward. He hung out with what his brother Gary said was the stinky kids. He was the stinky kids. He was the underdog. Nobody really wanted to hang out with him. He never had a girlfriend. Girls never talked to him, although he wanted a girlfriend. He wanted to be around girls, but he just was never that type. He also was not academic at all. He didn't play good sports. He didn't make good grades. And he was always compared to his brother Gary, who did play sports, who did make decent grades. Now, the two boys grew up basically in a graveyard, which that alone to me would be like, uh, but because their father was a grave digger for the cemetery allowed them, Larry, his twin brother, and mother and father, to live in a house that was on the cemetery grounds. So they basically got to live there for free because their father was the grave digger. Now, Larry began to dig graves when he
Well,
was
I'm gonna get
12
some shit out of
years
this.
old.
No
Now,
Centaurians.
not only does he
If
have
I
this
get
awkwardness
no
about wanting to be
Centaurians,
friends
so they
with
get an attacker.
socially
It's not
awkwardness,
gonna be no French attacker
I'm
or
definitely not
Brazilian
talking about
attacker.
him in a negative way
Not
at
gonna be
all.
no
It's just
5-star skill
because
player.
a lot
I
of
mean, just
people
some 3-star skill
are
attacker.
growing up. Matter of fact, most of
Or
them
some
did
dog
too
shit
in high
midfielder. I
school
don't
and
want no
college.
Centaurian.
But nevertheless,
And
this
just
is
because I know I'm
this
gonna
is
say
one
no
of those
Centaurian,
issues
I'm gonna put one
because
bullshit
he
Centaurians
saw
in
his
there
father
and some
make
player with no skill
grades.
because I know I'm
And
gonna
this
say it
is
anyway.
where people say that Larry became so
Yeah.
comfortable around deceased bodies. It was even said that he would steal like jewelry and valuables off of the bodies before him and his father would put the people in their graves, which is absolutely horrible. Now, neighbors that knew the family said that their mother was very overbearing. She was super protective, basically did everything for the boys and, didn't let them do anything for themselves. And then the father was a severe alcoholic. As a matter of fact, he ended up losing his job as a grave digger because he was drinking so much that he was putting the wrong people in the wrong graves. Yes, when he lost his job because he was putting the wrong people in the wrong graves, this is when the whole family had to move out of the house that they had been living in, basically for free for so long. And the four of them moved into what could be described as a little shack, a one-bedroom shack. Now, not only did Larry struggle in school
It's just such
and
a
not
waste of
have any
time.
friends,
Where this guy
Gary
like, what
said
is the
he
point of that?
never had any romantic relationships growing up, but Larry also had a very bad habit of lying. People said that he would lie just to lie, and that it was like he would lie to you just to get a reaction out of you. He would make up stories just to try to impress people, but then also sometimes when you talk to him, you never knew if it was the truth. It's almost like he would sprinkle the truth into a lie to try to see if people would figure out what was the truth and what was a lie. Also, according to his brother Gary, who tried to be a positive influence
Yeah.
on his brother Larry because he was basically everything that his brother Larry wasn't. And even though he tried to be a positive influence to his brother Larry, they could just never really become close because of all these other issues that Larry had. And then the lying, too. Mind you guys, the boys were born in the early 1960s, so they grew up in the 60s and 70s. And by the time the boys were 15 years old, they started to get into trouble. They were out, being little hoodlums in the neighborhood. And Larry even got arrested for busting a window out of a store in a downtown area. And it was also suspected that Larry committed multiple acts of arson, burglary, and he committed other little minor crimes while he was growing up. After high school, Leary got a job as a janitor and he began to travel around the U.S. and was like participating in these American Civil War reenactments. And I guess I had seen stuff like this before, but I didn't really know what it was. And I looked into it, and it's where people from all over dress up as people from Civil War days, and they bring their kids and their animals, and they go out and meet in different places of the United States, and they reenact the Civil War. Larry's brother, would later say that he thinks that Larry's Civil War reenactment romantic partner or be in a relationship. And he had these like deep fantasies. Well, the fantasies grew over time and they became fantasies in an intimate or sexual nature, and then they went into like these violent fantasies along with all of that. So his brother would later say that he believed him going to these war reenactments was ways for him to basically like get his fix. The FBI would say that they believe that around the 1980s is when Larry began to actually act out these violent fantasies that he had. And this is when they suspect that he began to kill people. The FBI also believed that when Larry would attend these like war reenactments, and there would be again there'd be different places all over the United States. They would meet in this town and this state. They would meet in this town and this state. They believed that Larry began to go to these Civil War reenactments, and while he was in town for these reenactments, that he would go to nearby towns and select victims, and he would abduct mainly young girls or younger women who were walking by themselves, riding a bike. Again, this is at this point they're believing the 1980s. I mean, people send their kids to the store to bring them a pack of cigarettes back. You know what I mean? Like it was normal for little kids or younger teenagers or definitely young adults to walk by themselves. The FBI also believed that Larry, when he would go to these other towns for these reenactments and he would find somebody walking alone or by themselves, they believed that he would take them, pull them into his van, and he would and he would stab and strangle them and kill them and dispose of their bodies. Over the next decade, several female bodies, some young and unidentified,
Stop
were
that.
discovered and later attributed to Larry due to their bodies being found in the way that they
Dog,
believed
just
Larry
leave me alone,
left
bro.
bodies, like and and body parts
Fucking.
being used. However, the exact details of Larry's life and crimes haven't been widely publicized, even though he may be one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. See, in September of 1993, there was a case of a missing girl, and her name was Jessica Roach, and she was in Georgetown, Illinois. This was the exact case that put Larry on the police's radar because they weren't even thinking about him. Okay, this is just some random guy in a van that works as a janitor at times and goes to these Civil War reenactments and doesn't have any friends, doesn't have any relationships. They didn't even know he existed until 15-year-old Jessica Roach went missing. Jessica was last seen riding her bicycle near her home. 2 months later, her body was found in a cornfield in Indiana. Witnesses say that they saw a strange van driving through the cornfield around the same time that Jessica's body was found. And then later, witnesses were able to provide these investigators with a license plate number, and that license plate number is what tracked them back to Larry. Now, what was even stranger to the investigators was that another teenager named Trisha Lynn Reitler had disappeared about 6 months before Jessica, and the two cases were so similar. On March 29th, 1993, 19-year-old Trisha had been in the middle of writing a term paper when she decided to leave her dorm and go to the store that was only about half of a mile away. She was just going to buy a soda and a magazine. However, she never returned to her dorm. The police believe that Trisha was snatched while she was on her walk back from the store, and her parents believe that she was killed that night. However, Trisha's body was never found. Now, it was reported that Larry had been watching women outside of the store that Trisha shopped at that night. So there were people that saw his van sitting out there just like watching women shopping in the store. So now the investigators are realizing, okay, we've got this van placed in two different areas where two different young girls go missing. The investigators, again, they had never heard of Larry before. His vehicle was linked to Jessica's disappearance. So when they heard that he was outside the same store that Trisha shopped at before she went missing, this is what gave the investigators the evidence that they needed to connect Larry to the scene of at least one of these disappearances. So they ended up going and getting Larry, and they brought him in for questioning. Now, when Larry sat down, want y'all to remember what I told y'all in the beginning of this video. Because when they sat down and they began to question him, they could not believe what Larry told them. He started to confess. The first thing the investigators say they did was show Larry a picture of Jessica. Now, when they say that they showed Larry this picture of Jessica, he immediately flinched and turned away, which would be obviously a huge red flag. Allegedly, he put his hand over his face like he didn't want to see the picture, but then the investigators say that it was not long before Larry began to confess. He admitted that he had actually Jessica and that he struck her in the woods. He told the investigators that he laid 15-year-old Jessica up against a tree. He put a belt around her neck and he strangled her. On the outskirts of London, in their home in the tree, Ollie and Lily sat watching TV. Ooh, said Lily. Her until she stopped breathing. Larry admitted to hurting more women, including Trisha, who Larry identified by pointing at her picture. They laid out all of these photos of women that were missing, and Larry told the investigators all of them. I can't remember all of them. I picked up several in other areas, but he told them that he couldn't remember which ones he had picked up and which ones he had hurt. So you can imagine, too, at this point, the investigators are probably a little frustrated because now he's admitting to the situation with Jessica. He's giving exact details of what he did to her. Then they're showing him these other photos, and he's saying, yes, I did do this to Trisha. And then when he shows them all the photos, he goes, oh, all of them. I did it to all of them. However, the very next day, Larry recanted all of his confessions. He told the investigators that he was just telling them about his dreams that he was having and that it never actually happened. So, again, because Larry is a little different, okay? And he lies so much and has always lied so much. It's hard to tell what's the truth and what's not the truth. But these investigators
I'm gonna put life on a lie detector.
they got the
What's
right
with the
guy. I mean,
what's with the
everything
big deal?
lines up. The van, him being in the places
I
where
don't
these
know.
people
I
were
don't
missing
know.
at the
What's the
same
big deal?
time.
People put a lie detector if Gary lies all the time.
Van, but yet he's confessing
People lie all the time, you know, pathology. What do they call it? Pathological, yeah. Pathological lies. Dog, yo, bro, I'm really frustrated. Just go away, man. Why can't just be? Why can't just go somewhere else, innit? You can't just be eating 24/7. I can't afford to fucking feed you all every second. Stop licking me, innit?
Does these things, and when they're busted, they confess to it, but confess to a bunch of other stuff that they couldn't have possibly did. Therefore, that original confession that they gave looks like basically a crazy person just talking. This made it nearly impossible for the investigators to get a good confession from Larry that they could actually use against him in court. But nevertheless, they did not give up. And in 1995, Larry was indeed found guilty of kidnapping Jessica Roach and was sentenced to life in prison. Now, Larry was not actually charged for her murder, and this is because the investigators were not able to determine if Jessica was killed in Indiana or Illinois. But they knew it was him because he told how he did it, and they were able to find Jessica's body. One of the few bodies that they were actually able to find. There were still so many questions that were left unanswered, though. Now, something very interesting yet scary that happened was in the beginning, Larry's brother, Gary, was still trying to protect him. He just thought there was something wrong with him. He was weird. He never had a girlfriend. He had all these fantasies, and so maybe he was making up these fantasies in his head that he had done these things, and maybe he didn't. And from what I've read about Gary in interviews that I've seen with him, and I think he's only done the one interview that I've seen, it's almost like he felt guilty because of what happened when they were in their mother's womb, which he shouldn't, but I guess I could understand. So he really tried to protect Larry for a long time. Now he changed later. Because of all of this, Larry's brother Gary ended up hiring him a very good attorney, and they appealed his case. And they actually won one part of an appeal, and investigators were getting very nervous that he would eventually get out for some reason.
Jimmy didn't do, and they couldn't really prove it because of this, and because Gary told so many different stories. Who knows what's the truth? Is it what beyond a reasonable doubt? So the investigators knew that they had to do more, and this is when they decided that they needed to get somebody that was within the prison with him, because at this time he was still in prison, but getting ready to go back for another appeal. The investigators wanted to get somebody inside there with him to see if they could get him to confess, tell where some of the bodies were, or anything. This is when the investigators went and contacted a man named Jimmy Keene. And you guys, this guy Jimmy Keene has the most interesting life story. I mean, I have gone so down the rabbit hole with things that he did when he was younger and how he used to get into trouble and how he got into this situation with Larry Hall. Very interesting. But to keep it short, Jimmy Keene began to sell substances when he was like very, very young. His father was like a long-term cop, and he was always like in this lifestyle, and he wanted more and more and more, and he became very good at what he did. Again, a long story short, he ended up getting arrested, railroaded really for his charges, and ended up getting sentenced 10 years to life on a conspiracy charge. Okay, and the conspiracy charge was they didn't even have any real evidence against him, it was just word of mouth, and they sentenced him 10 years to life in prison, which means he goes in for 10 years, he gets into one fight, time goes up, another fight, time goes up. And you know what I mean? So he was a smooth talker, and he was somebody that could get along with anybody because he had been in this lifestyle for many years. This is when the DA, the prosecutor, approached Jimmy while he was in prison, and they offered him a deal. They told him that if he would go undercover and get a confession from Larry, that he would be released and his record would be completely expunged. Now, before Jimmy accepted, they let him know that at that time, Jimmy was in a minimum security prison. Basically, a cupcake camp for prisons if you're going to have to be in prison. If he accepted, he was going to have to be transferred to the same prison that Larry was being held in. And that was a maximum security prison that is for the criminally insane. Okay? This is the worst of the worst. It was deemed the place where they sent baby killers, the place for people with no souls, and just a really bad maximum security prison. And the prison was in Springfield, Missouri. After Jimmy thought about it for a while and he learned a little bit, they told him a little bit about Larry's situation. The fact that he was doing this to young girls and he decided to accept. Now, once he got there, he immediately went to work and tried to become friends with Larry. It's interesting though because the prosecutors that were working with Jimmy, they had like this 6-month plan with him to become friends with Larry and not to move it too fast. But I listened to an interview with Jimmy where he said that basically the day that he got there, he saw Larry in the chow hall and he beelined to him. So again, you've got Larry who's never really had any friends. He's, that socially awkward, living in his own fantasies in his head. And Jimmy, who's like this buff, cool dude who's like been running money schemes and has lived this lavish life before he got caught up in this conspiracy stuff. He goes up to Larry and he tells him that like he's a cool dude. Well, Larry, he's never had that before. He eats it up. Jimmy also told a story where he said that this is the point that he believed that Larry really began to trust him. Jimmy said that one day, him, Larry, and some of the other inmates were like in the day area watching television. And on the television was like an America's Most Wanted, and it was serial killer episode. So Larry's just sitting in there watching it, loving it. And another inmate that was in there, and he said it was a big, giant, buff inmate, just went up to the television, boop, and changed the channel. He said that when he changed the channel, Larry, being this, again, awkward, socially awkward, whatever type of guy, looks over at Jimmy and like mumbles, "Hey, I was watching that." Jimmy took this as his opportunity to show him like he was loyal to him. Jimmy said that he jumped up, and long story short, he ended up getting in a fist fight with this dude, took him down, all this stuff. Jimmy gets thrown in the hole. And when he comes back out, Larry took to him like this. It was almost like Larry took to Jimmy like Jimmy was his twin brother Gary. Later, at one point, Jimmy saw Larry in the prison workshop carving falcons, like the bird falcons. And on these falcons, he had them positioned where they were looking over like this map. And the map had all of these red dots, like one in Indiana, all over the place. According to reports, Jimmy said that when he went over to Larry and asked him about it, that Larry told him that these falcons watch over the dead, which made Jimmy believe that these marked spots on this map were the places that Larry had killed, like all of these victims. At some point, Jimmy ended up talking to Larry, and he could tell that Larry really took to him. He was with him all the time. He was following him around, and he felt really protected by Jimmy. This is when Jimmy said to him, like, hey, my mom saw some newspaper that you were in, and it said you did all of these crazy things, and da 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 da. And Larry got scared that he was going to lose Jimmy's friendship, and he said, oh, they're lying on me. I didn't do that. This is what I did. And this is when Larry began to tell him about things that he had done. According to Jimmy, he would snatch these young girls, and some of them he would dissolve their body into like acid and turn them into liquid and dig holes and pour it in there. Jimmy would later say in an interview that even if you went to some of these spots to look for their bodies, you would never find their bodies. If you dug up the dirt, you might find some sort of like DNA traces, but that you would never actually find the bodies because of what he did to them. At this point, Jimmy felt like he had solved like the case, like what had gone on, and he had enough to prove to the FBI that he got enough to keep him basically in prison, keep Larry in prison. So he went to a phone and he called the FBI. Now, mind you, he had this deal with the FBI that after he got the information from Larry, that they would have him out in 24 hours. But he called them, they didn't answer, and he left them a message. Now, after he left them this message, Jimmy was like boiling with everything that he had found out, and he went up to Larry and he confronted him. And it got so out of hand that they ended up throwing Jimmy into solitary confinement again. Because he was in solitary confinement, he could not communicate with his outside sources, so he ended up staying in solitary confinement even though he thought he was going to get out in 24 hours. The FBI allegedly didn't get the phone call because the FBI said that they did not get Jimmy's message. That gave Larry time to get rid of this map. So now Jimmy's sitting in the hole for 2 weeks, waiting to hear from somebody, like day, night. Larry's got time to get rid of all of his evidence, and by the time Jimmy, gets out, Larry had gotten rid of the map. Because he was able to get information that the public would have never known about people that had went missing, the FBI did hold up their end of the bargain, and they did end up getting Jimmy out, and his deal was honored. The investigators still didn't have all the answers that they wanted from Larry. However, they were able to get enough information in order to keep him in prison for life. These are just some of Larry's suspected victims. 19-year-old Naomi Lee Kidder, 26-year-old Lolly Chavis, 10-year-old Linda Lynn, who went by Little Linda Welby, 16-year-old Wendy Louise Felton, 19-year-old Paulette Sue Webster, 20-year-old Michelle Lee Dewey, and 22-year-old Lori Jean Deppies. Now, again, these are just some of Larry's suspected victims. In total, they're rumored to be about 54. Now, I would hear later Jimmy say that he believed it was like in the 20s, the high 20s. He said that he confessed at least 20 different people to him, and he believed these confessions. And this is a man who says that he knows what it's like to look in a killer's eyes. And when Larry was confessing to him, treating him like he was his big brother, that he believed it. It would later come out that apparently when Larry was first arrested during a phone call with his brother Gary, he actually asked Gary to have his father go to his house and burn all of the papers that he had around. Gary, his brother, would later say that he did see something that looked like a possible map with tons of red dots last year, as of me filming this, in 2022, a crime drama miniseries called Blackbird came out that is based on Jimmy and Larry's relationship in prison. Now, this is a picture of the actor that plays Jimmy, and this is the real Jimmy Keene right here. And again, I've watched interviews with Jimmy, and I'm so glad that he was offered this deal and accepted it and was able to keep Larry behind bars. It's unimaginable to believe that he almost got out because he, you know, was the way that he was, and he lied so much that he almost was rewarded for his lies. Can you imagine doing all of this stuff, sick as all get out, having these like weird like fantasies and fetishes and wanting to act them out and going out and doing it, flying under the radar because a lot of people in the town just thought he was harmless. They just thought he was the strange guy, but he wasn't, you know, just the strange guy. And then he would confess to it, but lie and confess to other stuff, and he almost got away with it. And he would have, without a doubt in my mind, he would have killed again. And I mean, like we just talked about, just one of those suspected victims was 10 years old. And no matter how old they were, I mean, they didn't deserve to go missing or end up in the way that they could have possibly ended up. And it's just so sad. So many of these families still to this day have no closure. And I don't think that they probably ever will. In one of the interviews, I heard Jimmy say that when he was talking to Larry in prison, and when Larry would talk about the girls, he said that the way that Larry believed it in his mind was that the girls wanted it. And that, like, he said that one time with one of them, he got so mad because she was crying for her mommy. And why would she do that? That is just like mom's like crying out for her mother. And in his mind, it's like, why would she ruin the moment by calling for her mother? And Jimmy also said that Larry, the way that he talked about the women that he had done this to, was he compared it to some like religion and believed that if you do certain things, you die and you go to heaven and you get all these virgins, right? He said that Larry, the way that he talks, he believes that all of these people that he did this to are waiting for him on the other side. And when he gets there, they're all going to be there waiting for him. Like he's got these fantasies going on in his mind. Sick, sick, sick. He never, ever, ever needs to get out or be around anybody ever again. And Gary, again, who felt bad and tried to protect him for a long time, once he started seeing all of these things, he realized that he didn't need to protect his brother and that his brother was sick. And as a matter of fact, in the interview that I listened to with Gary, he was, you know, like hindsight, you're excusing things away because you think, oh, that person, he's got issues or he's strange or, you know, whatever. And then when he started realizing these things were true, then all of this stuff from his childhood started coming back. Gary said that he remembered he would wake up in the middle of the night and his brother Larry would be standing over him with like a big stick or something, just staring at him while he slept. And so he no longer tries to protect his brother, but he had to learn, unfortunately, you know, the hard way too. So, have y'all heard about this case? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. What do I think? Again, I think that he never, ever, ever needs to get out. And I am so, so glad that Jimmy Keene was able to go in there and get the information that they needed so he could not get out on an appeal because he lies so much. Let me know what you guys think. I love y'all. Again, have a very, very, very Merry Christmas. Love your family members, love your animals, and I will see y'all in the next video. Love you guys. Bye. Before we get into today's video, I do want to let you guys know that this video is for educational purposes only. Please remember out on an appeal because he lies so much. Let me know what you guys think. I love y'all. Again, have a very very, very, very Merry Christmas. Love your family members, love your animals, and I will see y'all in the next video. Love you guys. Bye. Merry Christmas. Love your family members, love your animals, and I will see y'all in the next video. Love you guys. Bye. Very Merry Christmas. Love your family members, love your animals, and I will see y'all in the next video. Love you guys. Bye. Merry Christmas. Love your family members, love your animals, and I will see y'all in the next video. Love you guys. Bye.
Son.
Well, Gabby.
I was 16. I was 19. The healing process, it takes time, doesn't it? It does take time. It always stays in your mind.
When you're in an abusive relationship, you're cut off from the rest of the world. For 2 years, I lost touch with all my friends and family. I wasn't eating properly. She didn't let me. I could feel that my body was starting to shut down. I'd sleep and just smack me on the head, and I'd just go in the mirror and I'd look, and I'd just be bleeding. After Jordan was sentenced, I decided to speak out and share my story with the world. Many women who have been in abusive relationships have been getting in touch with me. It's not always easy to talk, but it helps to know that you're not alone.
What happened to you then? Very, very similar to you. It was my first relationship. It started off 2 or 3 months absolutely fine, no problems at all. And then little things started to change. And from that day on, it just got worse.
Start not hoping that can just go back to how it was at the start.
Exactly, that's what I was always hoping.
How old were you when you got worse? I was 16.
I was 19. The healing process, it takes time, doesn't it?
It does take time. It always stays in your mind.
Yeah, of course it does, yeah.
And because it was so long of being that way, you can't just ignore that. It will be there.
Well, one thing for you, from my personal experience, I mean, I kind of felt like I'm going to struggle to get into another relationship.
Yeah.
Overthinking about it, you know, am I going to get the same from another person?
Yeah.
But you will find that person naturally. All those thoughts genuinely will all go away. And the relationship will be perfectly fine. And you'll start to realise what a normal relationship is.
Yeah. To have someone that wants to speak to me, that is so simple. That's like proper.
But I think only difficult to talk out.
Yeah.
To speak out of it. As much as it's horrible to know that somebody else has gone through it, it was a nice thing that I knew I wasn't alone with it. I'm really pleased that I've done that. Yeah, I really appreciate it. That's fine. That's fine.
Hello, I'm Denise Robertson and I'm outside London Magistrates Court. If you're about to experience a domestic violence court hearing for the first time, this short film will help you understand what happens when you go to court.
I swear by Almighty God.
I swear by Almighty God.
That the evidence I shall give.
To all the parties in the proceedings, I'm the legal advisor in this case, and these are the magistrates. The magistrates will be hearing the case against Mr. Smith. This is Mrs. Jones, the prosecutor, and this is Miss Kim.
The defence and the prosecution solicitors will ask you questions about the incident.
Date of birth, please.
Jill Clark, 10975. Miss Clark, I'm going to ask you some questions about an incident that occurred on the 19th of October of this year.
After the court has heard all the evidence, the chair of the bench will sum up the case and give the court's verdict. Guilty or not guilty.
Everyone stand, please.
Mr. Smith, we are dealing with an offence of common assault. It is for the prosecution to satisfy us that you are guilty beyond reasonable doubt. From the evidence we have heard, we know that the prosecution and defence are agreed that if the verdict is not guilty, the defendant will be free to go. If the verdict is guilty, the court will decide what sentence to impose.
It's very likely that the solicitor is being lied to as well. The court system is being lied to. The liar is very good at calling your bluff, at maintaining that no, there was no abuse, no abuse. And they'll keep doing that long after the findings have been made in many cases. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Survivor Diaries. The title of this episode is Court Proceedings and the Abusive Parent, and specifically we're looking at the liar in court proceedings and the misinformation that may be given by the abusive co-parent both to CAFCAS, to the court in the form of their statement, and it's in response to a specific question that I've been asked by a person through social media, which is that when he makes these libel or false claims to CAFCAS officers and to the court in the statement, he's protected by law and is called privilege. And she's looked at the idea of libel and speaking to libel lawyers about the fact that false information is being used and to a detrimental effect. Obviously, this can result in some kind of miscarriage of justice if it was then sort of like found to be the truth. And somehow the court didn't pick up on that, then that would cause obviously severe disruption to families, and if it was a situation where there was ongoing abuse, potentially it puts people at risk of ongoing harm, something that the family courts are receiving criticism for, and therefore something that the family courts need to examine and look at. I'll just disclaim, just to start with then, I am a solicitor in England and Wales. I am a family lawyer. In the episodes and in the vlogs, I can only give very general advice advice, it is important to speak to a solicitor about your, or a legal professional about your own unique situation. It is just something that I'm using as a model. Okay, so I don't think that's the route to go down, which obviously is going to leave us with the question of what can be done about it. Just before I go into that though, I want to just go through some of the difficulties that the abusive personality presents in family proceedings before going on to what can be done. The problem that we've got is that the abuser, as we know from Pat Craven, has two other parts of their personality, which is the liar or the persuader. So the liar will say that there was no abuse when there was. He will say that the mother was abusive. He will minimize the abuse. He will stop his own contact, for example, with his children, and then say that the contact has been stopped by the mother. He will say that he is being alienated rather than taking responsibility for his own behaviour, and the fact that the children and the other parent may be scared to see him, or they may be upset to see him, and there's no acknowledgement there of the fact that his behaviour could have this impact on the other parent and on the children, but instead the cry of alienation again. The persuader, being a blatant persuader, just coming back to the liar, also raises concerns about the parents. They may raise concerns about their alcohol use or drug use, and they may raise concerns about mental health, their care of the children, and they may say things that are just blatantly untrue. And so what we do about that is what I come on to towards the end of this episode. The liar, very hand in hand usually with the persuader, which is another aspect of the personality of the dominator. The persuader will say that he's a good dad. He will spend time with the children doing things that they enjoy so that they miss doing that. He will manipulate the children in that respect. And I've covered in other episodes about how
284, no special class.
Manipulation of the children can work with parental alienation by not following a common pattern.
187, no special card.
And expectations from the children.
This is
the previous episode about the allegations of parental alienation. The persuader will say that the children miss him. He will say that he misses the children. He will say that he can't live without the children. He will say that the allegations, he may even acknowledge some of them or say that they were historic. And this allows the CAFCAS officer or the court to think this is a changed person. What I want you to understand about the persuader or about the abusive personality is that they are very, very good at acting.
Why is he saying he?
The women
If it's a non-biased thing, why is she saying he?
Are not stupid people. And this is something else that I keep saying. Domestic abuse can happen to anybody. The people that I speak to are very intelligent, and it's not as though they went on this first date and were told no, they can't go out. Or they went on this first date and got punched in the face and thought, this is for life. This didn't happen. There has to have been some kind of manipulation or some kind of act, and that is exactly what
no special card, 84, 85.
The CAFCAS officers, the judges, the social workers, what they are all facing, this act, this persuasive, brilliant father, this father who maybe understands, there were mutual arguments and, we're both as bad as each other, and I can see how harmful that was for the children. He persuades. And I just wish that the mother would also let go of the past, he says, and lies about what's happened. And then as soon as the court are not watching and he's got to once, then we're back to the abusing of the other parent through the child arrangements, where there's a lot of opportunities to abuse that co-parenting relationship, something I keep coming back to. The persuader is charming, articulate, intelligent, and even if they're not those things, they will come across as somehow vulnerable or lovable or something, they try to make people like them. That is what they do. It's a very narcissistic behaviour and it's what they're very good at. They're already doing it with the victims, family, the victims' friends. What we don't need to happen is for them also to do with the court system, which is what happens. I've heard judges say that, he looks like a nice type or a truthful type, and that's just, you've got to look at evidence before you can say whether or not the allegations of domestic abuse are true. And that is just a safeguarding issue. And yes, you do need to err on the side of caution because we're talking about people's lives. You know, you can look at the very pioneering work of some people, Rachel Williams, Claire Throssell, can tell you all about the dangers of court-ordered contact and how domestic abuse can just have devastating effects, be used for devastating effects, because domestic abuse, the abusive personality, is not about spending time with the children, it's about continuing control of the other parent. Luke and Ryan Hart, they can tell you the same about coercive control in relationships and what it's like from a child's perspective in that situation. And the court have a duty. The court have to help to end the problem of domestic abuse and end the post-separation control that occurs through the child arrangements. So that's the problem that's happening. One thing that I just want to clarify and clear up while I'm at it is something that frequently comes up, which is about the family justice system, including
Oh, fuck it. Yo.
and I include myself as a solicitor, barristers, judges, account officers. Quite often, the solicitors are assumed to know the truth and therefore be kind of peddling a lie. So I just wanted to clarify something. This is something that I've seen in family law and I've seen in criminal law, because solicitors are guided by the Solicitors Regulation. And one of our primary duties is about upholding the rule of law, and it's about overriding duties of the court and not to mislead the court. We are not allowed to represent a client who is misrepresenting or lying about the information that they're giving to the court system. And that kind of direct court system or the criminal court system. As a solicitation advisor when I was training.
Oh my god, dog, man, just go away.
I burgled the house, but what I'm going to do is same things with my cousin who's going to act as an alibi. And a solicitor cannot then say, that's a good idea, let's carry on with that. They have to say then, I can't represent you if you're going to put across that account. I can represent you if you're saying a comment, but as soon as you start putting an account that I know to be untrue, I can't represent you. And it's the same in family law. And I've had it happen with clients where they want to put across something that's not the truth as they've told me, and I'm not allowed to represent them to do that. So they either have to change what they're saying to the court, or they have to find a different representation because I can't do it. And let's just talk about that for a second. So in a family law situation, this would be a person who's come to see me as a prospective client, and let's just say that they are a male and they are abusive, just for the sake of argument in this example. And one of the things that they're saying is that there has been domestic abuse, but they're going to say that there hasn't, or they're going to minimise it, or say that they did make progress on the perpetrator programme when they didn't. And I need you to understand that solicitors can't represent them. We can't let them take those lies through to the court. We can't put those lies on the application on their behalf. It's more than our job's worth. Just consider this for a moment. I have spent 8 years retraining, and so I used to be a teacher, I'm now a family lawyer, 8 years retraining. And do you think that for one client, what I'm going to do is say, okay, I tell you what, I know you didn't kiss her on that occasion, but seeing as you know you're going to say that you didn't, let's do that. Now, do you think this abusive personality, when they're giving evidence, and when that evidence is being found to be untrue, and they're being proven to be a liar, the abuser has no problem or no difficulty blaming other people for their situation. So he's going to have no problem saying to the court, well, that's what my solicitor told me to do. And that is really serious. That is really serious because a solicitor cannot mislead the court. That is very, very serious. We are officers of the court. And it's not worth my job, quite frankly. I am not going to put myself at risk by representing somebody who I know to be lying and who is equally just as likely to turn around and say, well, she knew about it. Because I would then have to prove that I hadn't given that advice. So, just a bit of an aside there, just to maybe take the heat out of the feeling that some people who are survivors of domestic abuse and is continuing through the child arrangements, and they get very cross about how their solicitor, how the ex's solicitor can let them say these lies. And what I need you to understand is that it's very likely that the solicitor is being lied to as well. The court system is being lied to. The liar is very good at calling your bluff, at maintaining that no, there was no abuse, no abuse. And they'll keep doing that long after the findings have been made in many cases. So please don't worry if that is what the abuser is saying. And you're saying no, there has been domestic abuse. Until you get to fact finding, the courts make determinations. It's something that needs to be demonstrated. So this comes back to the other thing, what is it that you can do? And this is something that you can do way before there's any court proceedings in place. So as soon as you see this video, in some cases, as soon as you understand that you are working with an abusive co-parent, and abuse always continues through the co-parenting relationship, so unless it's been addressed, chances are you are experiencing abuse, and whether that's through messing around with holidays and special occasions, as said in the last episode, or whether it's more sort of like direct intimidation, threats, however it's happening, it usually continues through the child arrangements. So scrap that, it always continues through the child arrangements. But wait before then we've got to court, you need to be gathering evidence. It may be that domestic abuse happens, but you need to have the evidence to show it to the court. So gathering evidence, what to do? You need to keep everything in writing. That's something that my solicitor said to me in 2004, and it's some of the best advice ever. So from that point, I wouldn't speak to him about things on the telephone, we only communicated by text message for years and years and years. And then there's years and years of evidence of the way that he is with me and the way that I am with him. So that was one of the best pieces of advice, and it led to the findings in 2014 of continuing domestic abuse through the child arrangements, being able to exhibit those text messages. You also need to seek support for your positions. So speak to domestic abuse services, speak to your GP, something that I keep coming back to. Speak to school or nursery if that's applicable. Speak to family and friends who may also be witness to some of the things that have happened, or they may be able to be present at handovers or when there's a FaceTime call and there has to be an interaction, just so they can be in the background and hear what's happening. So that way you're collating your evidence, you're getting your evidence together. Also, keep a contemporaneous record. So you're actually writing down this on this date, this happened, and especially if you've got contact going on. On this day, the children were like this before contact, and this is how they were returned. It may seem like it's not going to amount to anything, or it may be fairly neutral. You may even say that the contact went well. Record it accurately and record it over time, so that you then have this that you can refer back to as well. That's all about speaking to people. It's all about the different ways that evidence can be presented to the court, and that's where you need to address the things that are being lied about. So because the question is about how to deal with the false information that's being provided from the liar to the family court, to CAFCAS, this is where you have to find the solution. So in the family court, at the place where you give evidence to your position, whatever the abusive personality is saying, and say that it never happened, etc., etc., this is where you have to set out your evidence. And you have to write statements that explains what you want the court to find and how you can show that the court should find it, referring to the evidence. And that's something that we're going to do in the future episode, which is about witness statements and providing evidence for that. It's in this, again, in the evidence checking process of the fact-finding hearing is where lies are going to be uncovered. And also, if you haven't gone to fact-finding, you can be asking the court to make findings within a statement for a contested hearing, be it a child arrangement, be it a non-molestation order. Again, it's going to come down to evidence that you have, and I can't stress the importance enough of getting evidence about your situation if you are experiencing domestic abuse. And I can't stress enough the importance of seeking support, not just because it gives you evidence, but because it's something, it's there, it's available, and because it can help you to get out of what is an absolutely horrific situation. So I hope that's answered that question, and I hope that's been helpful. Thank you once again for joining me on this episode of the Survivor Diaries, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode and or vlog. Thank you for watching, and bye. If the allegations are false, and you know that they're false,
I'm blowing man. Shut your ass. You chat too much. Fuck you.
When domestic violence cases come to our firm, they come from people from all walks of life. Whether it's a married couple, whether they're
No, let's go away.
girlfriend. What's the
Done. Done.
Domestic violence, usually presented as a male problem.
Done.
Domestic violence, usually presented as a male problem with dangerous men attacking women and children. The solution is often painted as being all about addressing misogynist attitudes, including respect for women. You know,
nearly half a century of research showing that is not true. A few years ago, you might remember DAY310, Senator, grilled bureaucrats in Senate estimates, asking what is the evidence for this link between domestic violence and respect for women. This idea that's all about misogynist attitudes. Questions on notice. Months later, they came back with a few WHO reports showing that if you include countries like Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan, you do get a link in some of these deeply misogynist countries between rates of domestic violence and 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 these sorts of attitudes. But it doesn't show up in egalitarian countries like Australia or Britain or Canada. It's just the evidence is simply not there. And we have, as I said, half a century of research showing this is a deeply complex problem with a range of causal factors, including drug and alcohol abuse, mental illness, family background, socioeconomic background, poverty. It is not across the board, and it is certainly not just.
Let's go. Go then. Go then.
The evidence is overwhelming that most family violence is two-way violence involving both male and female aggressors. And the very
Come on.
and instead of asking who are victims of violence, they ask who are perpetrators. And those absolutely astonished find women just as likely to say, I started hitting my partner. I'm the aggressor in our family. Women are just as likely to acknowledge that. And those researchers don't even talk about it now because they've had such flack for telling the truth about domestic violence. We've had professors, we've had academics across the world doing brave people doing research into this, and they've had death threats. They've had their funding withdrawn. They've had been booed from stages of conferences because there's this deliberate attempt to present this problem as entirely about aggressive men. And they don't want to know what the real research shows. I'll just briefly describe what is our best source of knowledge on this topic, which is a big research study which involved 42 scholars from 22 universities across America and certain other countries. It was called the Partner Abuse State of Knowledge Project. They looked at over 1,700 peer-reviewed articles into where research and investigators don't want to know what the real thing to say. I started hitting my partner. I'm the aggressor in our family. The women were just as likely to acknowledge that as the men. And when they published this, of course, all hell broke loose. Those researchers won't even talk about it now because they've had such flack for telling the truth about domestic violence. We've had professors, we've had academics across the world brave people doing research into this, and they've had death threats. They've had their funding withdrawn. They've had been booed from the stages of conferences because there's this deliberate attempt to present this problem as entirely about aggressive men, and they don't want to know what the real research shows. I'll just briefly describe what is our best source of knowledge on this topic, which is a big research study which involved 42 scholars from 22 universities across America and certain other countries. It was called the Partner Abuse State of Knowledge Project. They looked at over 1,700 peer-reviewed articles where research into domestic violence. And what they found was this overwhelming pattern of two-way violence with women more often than men instigating violence. That's what emerges in the research. Children aren't watching their dads abuse their fathers, abuse their mothers in violent homes. They're just as likely to be worried about their violent mothers. And that knowledge is being systematically repressed.
It's true that men are usually much stronger, and so when they express their violence inappropriately, horrible, horrible things can happen.
Yeah, and women are more likely to die. Homicide levels are higher through domestic violence for women because of the men's strength and they're more likely to be physically, cause physical harm when they do abuse women. There's no question of that. But the point is that it's this two-way street. It's about men and women who don't know.
And we're not going to find the solution.
So you can see my download speed, my upload speed, and my latency, yeah?
And the best thing
Why was this guy at 202?
And she's famous in Britain. She started the first women's refuge for women to go to escape domestic violence back in the early 1970s. And when she set that up, she found she was having real problems because some of the women coming to that refuge were violent to other women, violent to their children. And she started to speak out about this and say, we have a problem here of not just violent men, but violence within families, very much related to having observed violence when they were growing up in families.
Well, what they're planning on doing, watch this guy, he's going to be doing pure ball rolls and stabbing me and combos. He's going to be doing all of that because he's a good player. What they try to do is raise the ping to allow me to not, for me to not attack him. Yeah, I told you what I was going to be doing.
Realize this is a huge essential source of money for the women's movement. And Erin Kennedy was threatened, her dog was killed, she had to leave Britain because they wanted to get rid of her. She was telling the truth about domestic violence, and you weren't allowed to do that and Erin has made hundreds of videos talking about the fact that the women's movement latched on to domestic violence as their cash cow, as their major source of funding for the whole feminist enterprise. And it's been miraculous in how much money they have managed to get governments to give for what is a totally distorted view of this complex sexual problem. Spent $3 billion over the last decade in Australia on domestic violence, most of which going to this totally erroneous notion that we have to address misogynist attitudes to cure domestic violence. That's absolutely wrong.
At Watches of Switzerland, discover your perfect timepiece from our unrivaled selection of the world's most prestigious brands, including Tudor, Breitling, and Tag Heuer. Shop Watches of Switzerland, the UK's #1 destination for luxury timepieces.
As a matter of interest, we often hear that domestic violence doesn't discriminate, that it occurs amongst the affluent I hear that said often, as well as the poorer members of society. But you've actually, I think, indicated that, in fact, it does tend to concentrate with less affluent socioeconomic communities. Can you explain the link between domestic violence and socioeconomic conditions? Why it's important to understand this aspect of domestic violence?
This is what, if you look at research, it's very clear that it is related to socioeconomic level.
It's not what you hear on the
No,
streets.
we don't hear anything. We don't hear the truth about domestic violence. We are not allowed to hear the truth about domestic violence. The feminist enterprise wants to present this as across the board. It affects all of us. It's in every home. It's not just something that's particularly confined to the poorer communities. And of course, it's not. Can be happening anywhere. There's no question about that. We have a very good organisation called the New South Wales Bureau of Crime Statistics, producing official data based on police reports, and they show that in outback communities like Morgood or Canamble, domestic violence-related assaults are 25 times more common than in affluent suburbs like Lane Cove or Mossman. The evidence is there. It's just the media isn't interested in presenting that. They want to promote this feminist ideology which says it's across the board. It can happen to anyone.
You've said, and I'm quoting, that mothers, particularly single mothers and their boyfriends, pose a far greater risk than fathers, by which I take it to mean biological fathers in particular, of physical and psychological abuse and neglect of children, and that, further quote, there is irrefutable statistical evidence showing fathers are more likely to provide safer care than mothers. That doesn't fit with the common narrative.
No, we've had 25 years in Australia since our official government bodies have dared to publish research on the gender of perpetrators of child abuse. In 1996, the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare published a paper on abuse and neglect of children, showing that mothers were twice as likely as fathers to be responsible for abuse and neglect. That was the last time they published that data, and none of our government organisations publish it anymore. One of the men's groups actually did a Freedom of Information request, not the WA, Department of Child Protection, to release their figures. They're gathering these figures every year, and they won't release them. And I think you have the statistics, John, on showing what they found. 73% of cases of abuse and neglect by parents that year, the year they were looking at, involved mothers who were the perpetrators. Mothers were responsible for 68% of cases of emotional and psychological abuse, 53% of the physical abuse, and 93% of the neglect. I mean, this is what drives me crazy, that they're managing, the activists are managing to bully our official organisations into only telling one side of the story. The greatest risk of sexual abuse to children is from mum's boyfriend. There's decades of research on that, from casual men passing through the lives of single mothers.
Domestic violence, usually presented as a male problem with dangerous men attacking women and children. The solution is often painted as being all about addressing misogynist attitudes, including respect for women. You don't entirely share that view?
There's nearly half a century of research showing that is not true. A few years ago, you might remember David Leyonhjelm, the senator, grilled bureaucrats into this, asking what is the evidence for this link between domestic violence and respect for women. This idea that all about misogynist attitudes. questions on notice. Months later, they came back with a few WHO reports showing that if you include countries like Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan, you do get a link in some of these deeply misogynist countries between rates of domestic violence and and um, and these sorts of attitudes. But it doesn't show up in egalitarian countries like Australia and Britain and Canada. It's just the evidence is simply not there. And we have, as I said, half a century of research showing this is a deeply complex problem with a range of causal factors, including drug and alcohol abuse, mental illness, family background, socioeconomic background, poverty. It is not across the board, and it is certainly not just about men being violent. The evidence is overwhelming that most family violence is two-way violence involving both male and female aggressors. And there's a very interesting example of that. There's a famous longitudinal study in New Zealand called the Christchurch longitudinal study. I mean, years and years and years, decades, looking at important social issues. And there's a video made with one of their researchers talking about how they went out to interview people about domestic violence. And instead of asking who are victims of violence, they asked who are perpetrators. And they were absolutely astonished to find women just as likely to say, I started hitting my partner. I'm the aggressor in my family. The women were just as likely to acknowledge that as the men. And when they published this, of course, all hell broke loose. Those researchers won't even talk about it now because they've had such flack for telling the truth about domestic violence. We've had professors, we've had academics across the world doing, brave people doing research into this, and they've had death threats. They've had their funding withdrawn. They've had been booed from the stages of conferences because there's this deliberate attempt to present this problem as entirely about aggressive men, and they don't want to know what the real research shows. I'll just briefly describe what is our best source of knowledge on this topic, which is a big research study which involved 42 scholars from 22 universities across America and certain other countries. It was called the Partner Review State of Knowledge Project. They looked at over 1,700 peer-reviewed articles where research into domestic violence. And what they found was this overwhelming pattern of two-way violence, with women more often than men instigating violence. That's what emerges in the research. Children aren't watching their dads abuse their fathers, abuse their mothers in violent homes. They're just as likely to be worried about their violent mothers. And that knowledge is being systematically repressed.
So, welcome to Hartford Campus, home to our School of Law.
It's true that men are usually much stronger than
So you can see the 133 ping,
Homicide levels are higher.
133 ms for whatever reason.
Men's strength and they're more likely to be physically, cause physical harm when they do abuse women. There's no question that. But the point is that it's this two-way street. It's about men and women who don't know how to handle conflict. And we're doing nothing about that. We're lying about this really important.
You can see 61 ms, so I don't know why it's saying 133. You can see my upload speed is what's that? 9 megabytes per second. It takes me like 6 hours to upload a 3-hour video. So you can see all that. So watch it goes down now. Like quit. So they're always gonna quit because I'm not gonna play it again. I always just check the pin and say why is it at that level?
We're not addressing the solution at all. And the best example of that is a wonderful woman called Erin Pizzey, And she's famous in Britain. She started the first women's refuge for women to go to escape domestic violence back in the early 1970s. And when she set that up, she found she was having real problems because some of the women coming to that refuge were violent to other women, violent to their children. And she started to speak out about this and say, we have a problem here of not just violent men, but violence within families, very much related to having observed violence when they were growing up in families. And Erin, actually had a violent mother, so she knew all about this. She set up a whole string of refugees all over Britain. They started attracting real funding, and what happened was the feminists, the women's movement that existed at that time, realised this was a huge potential source of money for the women's movement. And Erin Kersey was threatened, her dog was killed, she had to leave Britain because they wanted to get rid of her, because she was telling the truth about domestic violence, and we weren't allowed to do that because and Erin has made hundreds of videos talking about the fact that the women's movement latched on to domestic violence as their cash cow, as their major source of funding for the whole feminist enterprise. And it's been miraculous in how much money they have managed to get governments to give for what is a totally distorted view of this complex sexual problem. We've spent $3 billion over the last decade in Australia on domestic violence, most of which going to this totally erroneous notion that we have to address misogynist attitudes to cure domestic violence. And it's absolutely wrong.
As a matter of interest, we often hear that domestic violence doesn't discriminate, that it occurs amongst the affluent. I hear that said often, as well as all members of society. But you've actually, I think, indicated that, in fact, it does tend to concentrate with less affluent socioeconomic communities. Can you explain the link between domestic violence and socioeconomic conditions? Why it's important to understand this aspect of domestic violence?
This is what, if you look at research, it's very clear that it is related to socioeconomic level.
It's not what you hear on the streets.
No, we don't hear anything. We don't hear the truth about domestic violence. We are not allowed to hear the truth about domestic violence. The feminist enterprise wants to present this as across the board. It affects all of us. It's in every home. It's not just something that's particularly confined to poorer communities. And of course, it's not. It can be happening. There's no question about that. We have a very good organisation called the New South Wales Bureau of Crime Statistics, producing official data based on police reports, and they show that in outback communities like Walgett or Canamble, domestic violence related assaults are 25 times more common than in affluent suburbs like Langcove or Mosman. The evidence is there. It's just the media isn't interested in presenting it. They want to promote this feminist ideology which says it's across the board. It can happen to anyone.
You've said, and I'm quoting, that mothers, particularly single mothers and their boyfriends, pose a far greater risk than fathers, by which I take it to mean biological fathers in particular, of physical and psychological abuse and neglect of children. And that, further quote, there is irrefutable statistical evidence showing fathers are more likely to provide safer care than mothers. That doesn't fit with the common narrative.
No, we've had 25 years in Australia since our official government bodies have dared to publish research on the gender of perpetrators of child abuse. In 1996, the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare published a paper on abuse and neglect of children, showing that mothers were twice as likely as fathers to be responsible for abuse and neglect. That was the last time they published that data, and none of our government organisations publish it anymore. One of the men's groups actually did a freedom of information request on the WA, Department of Child Protection, to release their figures. They're gathering these figures every year, and they won't release them. And I think you have the statistics, John, on showing what they found. 73% of cases of abuse and neglect by parents that year they were looking at involved mothers who were the perpetrators. Mothers were responsible for 68% of cases of emotional and psychological abuse, 53% of the physical abuse, and 93% of the neglect. I mean, this is what drives me crazy, that they're managing, the activists are managing to bully our official organisations into only telling one side of the story. The greatest risk of sexual abuse to children is from mum's boyfriend. There's decades of research on that, from casual men passing through the lives of single mothers.
Nothing beats a Jet 2 City break. So book now.
We have really very much feminist ideology infiltrating all our education systems, systematic programs to continue to advantage women, and no one taking any notice of the fact that boys are falling out in huge numbers. Boys are not finishing school, they're less likely to finish school than they used to. We have 60% of graduates are now women. If you look at the NAPLAN skills test in high school, in year 9 NAPLAN results, writing tests, the girls are 2 years ahead of boys on average.
Bettina Arndt is a well-known Australian social commentator with a particular focus on gender issues. After completing a Bachelor of Science at the Australian National University and a Master of Clinical Psychology at the University of New South Wales, she wrote for newspapers, magazines, appeared as a regular expert on sex matters, on television and radio. She then turned her attention to gender issues at large, including the disadvantages that men face, particularly in the family court system, and the trail of devastation in people's lives that used to come across my desk as an MP made me very aware of just how anxious some people become when they go through those times. Her advocacy for men and her critique of much modern feminism has led to controversy and criticism. Her 2018-19 campus speaking tour addressing the way universities adjudicate sexual assaults was disrupted. It was loudly opposed and widely commented on. Bettina received the Centenary Medal in 2003. In 2020, she was appointed a member of the Order of Australia for her contributions to social commentary and equity for men. This was a small opposition at the time. Her latest book is Men Too, a book about men's issues in what Bettina calls our anti-male society. And in terms of this conversation, we attempt, of course, to ensure that data, facts, arguments that really need to be thought through are put before people so they can form their own views. And Bettina's faced attempts to cancel her voice in the public arena, and yet I think some of the work she's doing, some of the research that she's putting forward on almost the failings of so many of our young men now can't be ignored. It worries me enormously that we don't do more about it. So let's grapple with some of the data and some of the facts and focus on those, because I think they need addressing. And that's what today is all about. But Bettina, welcome. And could you tell us, to kick off, a bit about your professional background and why you shifted from your well-known role as a sex expert, or an expert on sex and relationships, to becoming so engrossed with issues like domestic violence and family law?
John, I just want to say thank you for having me here today, and I'm very conscious it's a bit of a risky business to give someone like me a platform. and I'm very grateful you're doing that. No, I've had the most extraordinary career, starting off as a 23-year-old out there as one of Australia's first sex therapists. And I spent 10 years trying to convince Australia that sex should be a normal part of life. And it was just incredible because I became the person that everybody talked to about sex. I remember once sitting and I got a phone call from a nurse at North Shore Hospital saying I have a ward full of young men who are saying to me, will I ever get an erection again? And I don't know what to tell them. And none of the doctors will talk to them. And I had to go out and try to find what information was there to help these guys. But this was a whole new frontier of knowledge. And there was so much we didn't know. And it was just incredibly exciting being at the front of that, if you like. But initially, my work was very much addressed to women. I regarded myself as a feminist. I wanted to help women. But inevitably, what happened to me is men started to talk to me. And everywhere I went, they would tell me about the problems, and not just about sex, but about issues that were affecting their lives, particularly. And you mentioned
You fucker.
where so many men tragically were being prevented from seeing their children. And they talked a lot to me about that. And I wrote for about 20 years about issues of family law, to try to reform family law, which was so biased in those early days, in many ways still is. But what really bothered me was the fact that our whole cultural dialogue was very much tilted to women's wants, women's needs. We saw feminism really start to assert itself.
This guy is. Oh shit, I forgot about the pot.
Childcare doesn't work around the home. Study, which is done every 2 years.
That guy thought he was going to win. I forgot that I had the fucking tea on me. And I got it like a dickhead. Okay.
If one sex is not doing well, then neither sex is really doing as well as they should. Or, put another way, if we've got a lot of damaged men, they will inflict real harm, hurt on society.
You're not even allowed to swear in front of women. And that was the tradition of being very caring about the women in their lives. And men are being absolutely misrepresented in our male bashing society, and that's what I want to teach people today, I suppose.
Well, this is I'm very keen to end variables, if that makes sense, because cooperation is the only way society can move forward. You know, I heard an American social commentator say the other day, we seem to be at war at every level. It's race versus race, and it's generation versus generation. And I would have thought the Ukraine would show us that we're all Australians together. We need to find the things we've got in common before we constantly divide over the things that seem to set up this environment of enmity. You touched on feminism there in your own position. You've historically called yourself, I think, a feminist. Many feminists would now say that you're an outright traitor to the cause. What would you still call yourself a feminist, if I can just ask you that? And what's happened to feminism that so many self-described feminists now would say you were an outsider, you're not a feminist?
I think there's a whole generation of older feminists like me who no longer call themselves feminists. I mean, I was a feminist when feminism was about equality, about levelling the playing field, giving women an opportunity to find their rightful place, particularly in the public world, which was tremendously important and exciting when we achieved that. But what feminism today, to me, is all about advantaging women at the expense of men. And it's become very much caught up in the demonisation of males, presenting them always at a disadvantage. And I don't want to have any part of that. I was writing recently about boys' education, which is something I've written about for many decades. And I came across an article I wrote 40 years ago where we just started to notice how badly boys were doing with girls. So we had 10 years of programs trying to help girls do better in schools, which was fantastic. And a lot of girls who had been held back by traditional assumptions about, girls not speaking up and girls not doing well in maths were now beginning to shine, which is a fantastic thing. But what was becoming very obvious is there were also a lot of boys falling behind and not achieving their potential. Anyway, I was talking to this director of curriculum and I said, what will we do if boys continue to fall behind? And she said, we'll wait 2,000 years and analyse the results very, very carefully. And she said, oh no, that was only a joke. And of course, that's exactly what they've done. We have really very much feminist ideology infiltrating all our education systems, systematic programs to continue to advantage girls, and no one taking any notice of the fact that boys are falling out in huge numbers. Boys are not finishing school, they're less likely to finish school than they used to. We have 60% of graduates are now women. If you look at the NAPLAN skills test in high school, in year 9, that was the results, writing test, the girls are 2 years ahead of boys on average. Boys are filling the remedial reading classes, you name it. Every measure of boys dropping out, being disengaged from school is showing up as real problem. We've had 2 investigations, 2 inquiries, New South Wales Parliament, Federal Parliament, thousands of parents coming forward saying they're really worried to see no boys getting prizes anymore. It's fantastic to see all the girls, but they're conscious of how badly a lot of the boys are doing, how decisions they are, because so many of the ways we teach are designed to appeal to women's strengths and girls' strengths. And both of these inquiries, they determined they would implement all these new policies to help to bring boys up. And And they both tossed out as soon as the coalition government was thrown out. The mean girls in Labour decided we didn't want to borrow that. Warren, you mentioned Warren Farrell. He makes a very telling comment saying this is the first time ever we've seen a generation of boys who are going to be less educated than their fathers. And that's happening here. That's really chilling. And no one cares. No one notices anything.
I think it's important for me to say that I have three daughters. It's a tremendous thing that they are getting the best possible education, achieving, reaching their potential. That's not what's in question.
No.
But that was very interesting. You're saying a generation of boys less educated than their fathers.
Because always we've tried to be like, our children up. We want them to do better than us. We want them to be better educated. And that's happening certainly with our girls. But no one will acknowledge that our boys are not going to be as educated as their fathers were.
Now,
why won't we look at that?
There's a very interesting graph with one of your articles recently that just highlights this increasing gap. Have a look at it now.
Save on everything on the Oak Furniture Landwinter sale, now on.
This guy's stopping me from moving. You notice my Sub-Zero hasn't done anything on that screen for a minute. If you turn out to be a woman, do you not think you going around telling people I'm abusive will save you? You'd be a dead bitch, bitch. You can take that. Anybody you're married to, any brother, cousins you have out there, I feel they want to defend you. I can promise you, you're gonna have an issue. If you turn out to be a woman out there telling people I'm abusive, so they can get away with what you're doing, trust me, you're going to die. I promise you're going to die. I don't discriminate, neither men nor women. Anybody can get it. Yeah. I don't care if you're black, white, or Asian. I make that very apparent to everybody. Don't matter if you're a man or a woman. If you think you being a woman and going around telling everybody I'm abusive will be the thing that saves you if I attack you, oh, cry wolf. Tell the men that tell you that you'll be protected. Tell them that this is a lifetime problem that they have found themselves with. This problem will never go away. Even if I die, you will never get out of that. I promise you will. I don't care if you're a male or a female, you're obviously one of them. You're not a dog. Whoever is us doing all this, trust me, I don't care if you're a man or a woman. You can notice my ping's just going up. Every time I attack, every time I try to move, my ping goes up, which breaks the connection. Every time it raises, it breaks the connection, and it doesn't register my move. No, every time I do something, I haven't touched this guy once. But everybody knows how I use Sub-Zero, and for some reason I can't like I hit on this kid because look at my pings, they keep going up and down, and every time the ping goes up and down, it basically it delays my buttons.
I totally agree with you. Every rape must be taken very seriously. And of course, there is sexual assault on campuses, but we're really lucky because they're actually really safe places for young women, and we know that. The feminists,
Whoever it is that's doing it, while you keep noticing my ping just raising up and down, up and down. Every time it does it, it slows down my game and delays and pass. Not delays and pass.
and they got less than 1% having problem here, which is something to celebrate. And I wrote down here saying, let's celebrate our safe university. And I also got talked to we have a wonderful New South Wales data that showed our universities are 100 times safer on average than being in the general community. One of the safest places for young people.
So that's actual hard data.
Hard data from the Australian, the Human Rights Commission, Australian Human Rights Commission, was a deliberate survey to try to find evidence of the rape crisis, and it was a total figure. What they found was quite a lot of sexual harassment, including definitions like unwanted staring. So they mainly found lots of unwanted staring, and they went out and said, well, we've got a crisis of sexual violence on our campuses. They stopped talking about sexual assault and had this all-encompassing concept of violence. They bullied the university into going ahead with all these measures to regulate and adjudicate sexual assault on campus.
So there's something counterintuitive here. If the survey showed that in fact the universities were safer spaces, to use that word, safe spaces, than outside, why would the universities themselves, their councils, their leaders, their senior people, not celebrate that reality? Albeit, be able to correct the things that are still not right.
Because it's very powerful lobby that for years has been working on this concept of a rape culture on campus. I wrote, after that survey was published, I wrote to every university, every vice chancellor, and said, why are you frightening off overseas families from sending their daughters to our country by pretending there's a rape crisis and there isn't? Imagine the weasel words came back from the PR departments of the university, pretending, no, we have to ensure safety of our students. They are, at our university, are sadly totally captured by this lobby group that is managing to sway our whole culture that there's a problem on our campuses. And it has a really interesting origin. This all dates back to actually Joe Biden, who was vice president in the Obama administration. And at that time, this was all just beginning. The feminists were out there trying to beat up this notion that students are unsafe. They produced a survey showing 1 in 3 students is sexually assaulted, which has been totally discredited since then. But Biden announced he was going to change the sexual culture of America, and the place to do that was on our campuses. And the issue at the heart of this is this concern from feminists that we're not seeing enough rape convictions, particularly in relation to these cases of young people, date rape if you like. He said, she said, 2 young people having different versions of what happened, and they go before a jury, and the jury tends not to want to send that young man to jail when they don't want to believe. So juries have been throwing out a lot of these cases. Quite rightly, we're dealing with long prison sentences, and if you don't know where the truth is, how are you going to convict those young men? And so what Joe Biden did was set up tribunals all right across America, which took these cases out of the judicial system and set up these tribunals where boys would be denied their normal legal rights. There would be a secretive committee investigating the matter and making determination on the basis of the lowest possible proof. And across America, hundreds of students were thrown out of universities.
Is this what we might call in Australia a sort of process of kangaroo courts?
Yeah, well, the Americans had their own kangaroo courts long before we did. And I was writing about this saying, this is coming here. And lo and behold, exactly the same thing happened in Australia. They made this case for rape culture on campus, and then the universities didn't, not a single university stood up and said, okay, we're not going to worry about this issue. Thank goodness our students, not to say it never happens, but we're mainly dealing with the problem of low-grade harassment, and we will educate people about this. We will not usurp our criminal law system and start adjudicating rape. And none of them had the courage to take on this feminist lobby. And so every university in Australia is now making decisions around these sexual assault cases, and boys are being thrown out of universities. The universities are stealing their degrees, something they've worked for years to achieve. Universities feel totally entitled to say, I'm not going to give you your degree.
I've actually seen a video of a distraught mother, a mother of a son,
from near where you live, your territory, Armadale, in the middle of New South Wales. A dairy farmer, this family, and mother talking about what happened to her son and how he was a nursing student. He faced a false accusation made by a woman who had a history of mental problems of various sorts. And he was publicly shamed. He was thrown out of the college. He lost a year of his nursing degree. And eventually the girl had already withdrawn that accusation. I mean, these cases, I have a team of lawyers working pro bono to help young men who are being falsely accused in our universities. And last weekend, I spent time with one of these males who's just been through the ringer in one of our big universities. He was a brilliant young doctor from overseas, doing really well. He was stupid enough to decide to do postgraduate study at an Australian university. He comes here, he's a gay guy actually, and he was in a leadership role in his college. He was asked to reprimand one of the guys who'd been behaving badly in college. He did that, and this guy seemed to have had it in for him and made a rape accusation against this doctor. The university immediately investigated him, immediately believed this accusation, publicly threw this young man out. He was dumped in the place miles away from anyone he knew. He then, 2 years later, a magistrate threw this out, and another court gave costs against the Crown. That, which is really rare, because the court determined that this should never have gone near a court. This ludicrous case involving a witness who had no, in his case just didn't stand up. And we've eventually, my lawyers have managed to finally achieve a confidential settlement from that university. But last weekend, he still has parts of his hair missing. He's got alopecia from the stress of that incident that occurred years ago. He'll never recover from what they did to him.
Nothing beats a Jet 2 City break. So book now.
It worries me that some people are almost looking at this parallel legal system, what might be called kangaroo courts, because they don't think that there are enough convictions out of the regular court system. That's happening internationally as well as here. The huge danger is that it will destroy something that is incredibly important for every citizen, regardless of gender, which is the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. This terrible tendency to want to find a different system with a lower standard of law, perhaps understandable given the sensitivities of the subject, but nonetheless unbelievably dangerous, because our freedoms depend upon a legal system that's evolved over many years that begins with the presumption of innocence.
And protection for the accused. Yeah. And the accused right to have evidence that might exonerate him, be presented properly, and to cross-examine witnesses, and be given the best possible chance of making the case if he's an innocent man. That's what our justice system is all about. And we're seeing this constant call now for independent inquiries, which is about they want these kangaroo courts. Joe Biden wanted kangaroo courts to get more convictions, to remove the protection from the accused, to make it as easy as possible to nail that guy. And that's what the push is all about. And that is what's happening in our university system. We've allowed our universities to usurp our criminal law. And that's just appalling, and no one cares. And there's no question that rape victims used to be dealt with very bad, our criminal justice system. And they weren't taken seriously, they weren't protected, they were often cross-examined in a very ferocious way. And they faced another ordeal in our criminal justice system. We've had an enormous change in the way that the criminal justice system is dealing with rape victims. They're bending over backwards now to ensure every possible case is through and it's given proper trial. But there's deliberate manipulation of this issue by our media, constantly presenting the idea that rape victims still don't get a fair go. And this was a classic example where the Law Reform Commission published this data suggesting only 2 to 3% of rape allegations make it through the court. And I thought that can't be right. And I was talking to there's a very good researcher called Greg Anderson who publishes the only really reputable source of domestic violence data called DAY310 and he spent months and months reading of information requests trying to work out what the true figures really were. And he discovered that the Law Reform Commission had exaggerated by 5 times the cases that have been reported in the previous year, the sexual abuse cases, and the proportion of cases determined in court was actually 10 times more than they claimed, at least 3 to 30%. So the Law Reform Commission had it wrong, and they were told they had it wrong, and they sat on that for 2 months while the New South Wales Parliament debated legislation to introduce new sexual consent laws. And it was all over media, that 2 to 3%. It was used throughout that to make the case that the system was failing rape victims. And they were wrong. And then only after the legislation went through did they release that data.
So the Law Reform Commission has conceded the point.
Yes.
After significant legislation driven in no small part by false numbers.
False numbers. And I have this huge group of supporters who write letters for me, and they wrote to the Attorney General, and they wrote to members of Parliament saying, what was this all? This is like a conspiracy. And of course, we just get rubbish back from their PR people. But at least we draw attention to what is a really
It's like a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy.
I note that a very prominent Sydney barrister and former public prosecutor, Margaret Caneen, recently commented that there's a danger here that the changes in the criminal justice system could be designed to ensure more rape convictions by denying accused men normal legal process. She said all men and mothers and sisters and friends of men ought to be very concerned because what wasn't rape last year may be rape this year if the purposes of these reforms are simply to increase the number of people who are convicted of rape. That's an issue of innocent or guilty.
Yeah, a very important speech which the Rural Education Centre. Essentially what she exposed is the fact that the police and the prosecutors no longer have discretion to have a look at a rape accusation and see whether it's got legs. They have to push everything through the court. And then a certain proportion of those cases, thank goodness, are thrown out by juries who don't believe the women and who make careful judgments about whether the case stands up. But then the feminists turn around and say, look, rape convictions are going down. We have to introduce more measures to nail these guys. And the politicians get involved. And it's a perfect system. Pushing them all through, more and more of them fail, and then they can say the system isn't working. Perfect.
So you would question the slogan, when you say the juries question the slogan, believe all women.
Our juries are holding up pretty well. Margaret Caneen actually told me of a case where she was defending a man on a false sexual accusation, and during the court process, the woman's lies were exposed. It was patently obvious the guy was being set up. And the foreman stood up when he had announced the verdict and said, not guilty. And so, they brought the house down, but it was clear the emotion in that room about the fact that this guy had this totally false allegation being made against him.
Around 4 years ago, you decided to do a campus tour to speak out about what was happening. It led to nothing less than a riot squad being needed to protect you when protesters at Sydney University tried to stop you speaking. Can you give us a feeling for what that was like, what motivated you, and what the outcome was?
Obviously, I'm incredibly frustrated that this is going on in our universities and no one will talk about it. And I thought, well, if I go on campus and speak to students, at least it might help get a message out. And of course, what happened was there was a colossal movement to try to stop me, which worked very well for me because I got on publicity. One university, La Trobe, said I wasn't allowed to speak because it clashed with the values of the university. To tell the truth about what's happening on our campuses. But Sydney was the classic where there was this ferocious group of activists trying to stop my audience being able to get to the venue. And they were pushed against the wall and shoved. We all screamed that. And we had to have the riot squad brought in to allow the audience, the whole thing to go ahead. And what was fantastic for me is Dan Tehan had just started as education minister, and he announced he was going to do an investigation inquiry into free speech on campus, and that actually led to new legislation. And I take a bit of credit for that, not that I regret it, but it was, at least it brought to the fore this question of what aren't you allowed to talk about on our campuses, and most particularly this issue of what I think is the fact that we have this real notion of a really dangerous system of secretive courts doing over young men and denying them their legal protection.
So a couple of years ago, you were awarded an Order of Australia, and almost immediately you were subject to a cancel campaign, where prominent people, including two state attorneys general, asked for the award to be rescinded, claiming that you denigrated victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse. Those who objected to your award tended to try and paint you as not just being dishonest in your professional qualifications, serious charges, but also soft on sexual abuse, particularly regarding a case that occurred in Tasmania in 2010 between a male teacher and a female student. Your response?
Yeah, well, it was very interesting for me. Doing this work on campus was making me some very serious enemies. Young women who were involved in setting up this whole apparatus on campus, they didn't want me out there exposing what was going on. And it was one particular activist, an end rape on campus activist, who had been for years publishing articles defaming me. And within a few hours of my award being announced, she was writing articles, including all this misleading information about my career, carefully manipulated bits of videos I made designed to make me look as bad as possible, a whole lot of malicious material. And she lined up all these people, including Attorney General, to denounce me, and the mob came for me. It was just extraordinary. Day after day, I'm being denigrated by all our media. Now, their major ammunition they had was this interview I did a few years ago with a teacher who'd gone to prison for having sex with his pupil, a 15-year-old girl, who happened to be last year's Australian of the Year, Grace Tate. And I got involved in this when I heard about the fact that he'd served his prison sentence, he'd gone back, he lost his job, lost his family, everything. He decided to do a PhD at Harvard University, and the End Rape on Campus activists were stopping him from attending the university, screaming and yelling. And a judge wrote an article saying, "We don't believe in vigilante justice. People have a right, who've served their sentences, have a right to live their lives." And I thought, well, it'd be interesting to talk to this man. And I did a long interview with him. We started saying, "You did a terrible thing. You went to prison. Did you deserve that?" And he said, "Yes, I did." It set it up as a very serious issue, which it is. But it was a long interview. And looking back, I included material in there. We ended up chatting about other things. I included material about, for instance, the risk to males of teachers of dealing with accusations from girls. I should have just included that all in the interview. I would say that very clearly now. But that video was maliciously edited down to about a minute and shown again and again across the media in Australia, designed to make me look as if I was protecting this man and not taking his crime seriously. So that was one accusation that must have been shown on the ABC 100 times, that video, and it was extremely damaging for me. And of course, Grace Tame last year has been out making all sorts more and more derogatory comments about me, and I get threats, death threats, and God only knows what, still continuing. You mentioned this issue of my professional qualifications, and this particular activist has spent 2 years trying to prove, to criticise my qualifications and say I'm misrepresenting them. And in fact, she'd been on social media asking people to dob me into the health authorities, saying I'm a fake psychologist. And 3 times the health authorities have investigated this, and each time said I'm not doing anything, but no reason to have any action against me. The problem is that I trained as a clinical psychologist at a time when psychologists didn't have to register. So I finished my degree, I went out and started doing therapy only for a few months, and then the rest of my career, I worked in the media. And the problem is that often I would refer to myself, or people would refer to me as a psychologist or a former psychologist, just as Norman Swan is referred to as a doctor. And there's a lot of uncertainty about whether you can still call yourself using a professional label if you're not still practicing in that way. And so that was used as an attack on me. And in fact, the health authority said I didn't do anything wrong. So, but boy, did they get a lot of traction. And the New South Wales Attorney General just pulled out all these malicious accusations about me and demanded my award be rescinded. He read from the feminist songbook and condemned me. He didn't bother to do any question of what I'd done.
Well, the Honours Board did not rescind your honour.
They did not rescind. I got my honour. If I look back on that whole period, one of the things I regret now is I was very involved in social media. I had a big following on Facebook and Twitter and so on. Was in there discussing a lot of these issues, and there was a particularly controversial, horrible homicide involving Hannah Clark, who was killed by her partner, ex-husband, and with her 3 children. And the police investigator made a statement to the press saying they were proposing to keep an open mind and explore the possibility as to whether the ex-husband, the father, had been driven too far. And of course, all hell broke loose, and the media tried to push it. I think they did push that policeman out of his job. And I tweeted, congratulations, and I quoted what he said. The Australian Senate, the mean girls from Labor in the Australian Senate, used that to wedge the government into voting for a motion to condemn me. And they didn't say I'd quoted this policeman. They claimed I'd said what the policeman said. So they actually lied in that motion. And I thought that was probably the worst moment of my life. The Australian government condemns me. So they did a pretty good job. The mob came to me for me big time. And they took me to North Toll, they attacked my family. It was horrendous. And the funny thing is, the silver lining for me was COVID. Along came COVID and took me off the front pages, and I can't tell you what a relief that was.
Dream broke first time. The first all-in-one communication and leadership software from Europe.
At Rochester's Switzerland, discover your perfect timepiece from our unrivaled selection of the world's most prestigious brands, including Tudor, bribing, and tag heuer. Shop watches in Switzerland, the UK's #1 destination for luxury timepieces.
Well, Bettina, finally, it's been a very tough time. Effectively, I guess you'd say you've been deplatformed, and there's been real damage to your professional reputation. Even though it's pretty widely known that Wikipedia is not an entirely trustworthy source of information, and there are often things in Wikipedia that can be interpreted in ways that are simply contextually unfair and unreasonable. But your Wikipedia page contains posts that certainly cast you in a negative light. How do you feel? Do you sort of have regrets that you handle it differently now? Because this is a live issue. If we're going to just cancel people because we don't like what they're saying rather than grapple with the importance of the data and the research that they're presenting and make that the issue, we really are in trouble as a society.
And I'm glad you raised Wikipedia because it's the bane of my life. It's so amusing that Wikipedia has been captured and I've been determined to damage me. And I've had academics, I've had all sorts of people try to get in there to correct, you're supposed to be able to correct misinformation, and they won't let them. For anyone who's really interested in what happened to me and who did it, it's all on my website. I've got all the evidence we presented to the press council investigated these attacks on me, and I had to put together all these doctored videos and so on. So I hope some people will be interested enough to look to the truth of what's going on here.
So, Tina, see, for me now, what becomes the issue is, well, what about that extraordinary research that you do that needs to be taken seriously at a time when we're all at one another's throats?
I'm fucking finishing it down forward, down B. I've literally got it right down. Well, I've tried mid screen, I've tried close, so I probably need to actually check which one it is. It's definitely close, so no doubt.
I find it very hard to talk about.
I do like Kitana. Kitana is good. I guess if you know the buttons, you know, like everyone doing it.
Usually presented as a male problem with dangerous men attacking women and children. The solution is
Anyway, I just figured out what's going on. That's why they don't want to be identified. Because the problem is, people should know that this is being done to them. It shouldn't be hidden from them and done in the shadows, you know. So this might be England, but I still maintain the right to say you try to use the situation to end my life. I still maintain you man can't win that. Definitely can't win. Because people who know about it still fucking end their lives, go mad, all sort of things. Imagine not knowing what is going on and who is attacking you. Hey, give them man definitely. You might get a beating right there. Trust me. You might will get a beating. I don't give a fuck who you are, what you look like, or I don't care what your gender is, I don't care what your sexual orientation or religious belief. I just say these things because it was already going on behind closed doors. So I might as well say whatever publicly. I know it's in what they've done because what they've set up, yeah, because what they've fucking set up and what they did in silence, they can't now come out full fledged in front of everybody and do it. They have to do it in a little sneaky way. Still, I'm smarter than these guys. They know I'm smarter than them. Because they got to a point where they were doing it behind closed doors. People did not know I didn't know. People assumed I was just carrying on. They get me in it. So while they were drugging me and putting shit on my medication on my food, people were thinking that what they were doing was affecting me. But I genuinely no idea it was going on. You know what I mean? And the fact that the police is hiding it.
There's a famous longitudinal study in New Zealand called the Christchurch longitudinal study. I mean, years and years and years, decades, looking at important social issues. And there's a video made with one of their researchers talking about how they went out to interview people about domestic violence. And instead of asking who are victims of violence, they asked who are perpetrators. And they were absolutely astonished to find women just as likely to say, I started hitting my partner. I'm the aggressor in our family. The women were just as likely to acknowledge that as the men. And when they published this, of course, all hell broke loose. won't even talk about it now because they've had such flack for telling the truth about domestic violence. We've had professors, we've had academics across the world doing, brave people doing research into this, and they've had death threats. They've had their funding restored. They've had been booed from the stages of conferences because there's this deliberate attempt to present this problem as entirely about addressing them, and they don't want to know what the real research shows. I'll just briefly describe what is our best source of knowledge on this topic, which is a big research study which involved 42 scholars from 22 universities across Europe and several other countries. It was called the Partner Abuse State of Knowledge Project. They looked at over 1,700 peer-reviewed articles where research into domestic violence. And what they found was this overwhelming pattern of two-way violence with women more often than the instigating violence. That's what it is in the research. Children aren't watching their dads abuse their fathers, abuse their mothers in violent habits. They're just as likely to worry about their violent mothers. And that knowledge is being systematically repressed.
Nothing beats a Jet 2 city break. So book now.
So, welcome to Heart of the Cancer, home to our School of Law.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah.
Just in time to nominate.
And like I say, I can prove that I did not have a clue about it and what the public thought was going on. It's them drugging me to make it look like that's what I was doing. Obviously, these people would have done this to other people before.
Domestic violence for women, because of men's strength and they're more likely to be physically, cause physical harm than they do against women. There's no question of that. But the point is that it's this two-way street. It's about men and women who don't know how to handle conflict. And we're doing nothing about that. We're lying about this really important social issue.
So this is really important. Neither of us are saying anything other than that domestic violence is appalling. It's a terrible thing. To me, it's inexplicable and inexcusable. But what I hear you saying, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is that if we're not understanding the true nature of it, the true dimensions of it, then we're not going to find the solutions to the problem. We need to find the solution. That should be the objective.
We're not addressing the solution at all.
Solution is to kill them. Simple, yeah. There's no other solution. You don't kill one of them, they won't stop.
She's famous in Britain. She started the first women's refuge for women who to escape domestic violence back in the early 1970s. And when she set that up, she found she was having real problems because some of the women coming to that refuge were violent to other women, violent to their children. And she started to speak out about this and say, we have a problem here of not just violent men, but violence within families, very much related to having observed violence when they were growing up in families. And Erin, actually had a violent mother, so she knew all about this. She set up a whole string of refuges all over Britain. They started attracting real funding, and what happened was the feminists, the women's movement that existed at the time, realised this was a huge potential source of money for the women's movement. And Erin Kennedy was threatened, her dog was killed, she had to leave Britain because they wanted to get rid of her, because she was telling the truth about domestic violence, and you weren't allowed to do that because and Erin has made hundreds of videos talking about the fact that the women's movement latched on to domestic violence as their cash cow, as their major source of funding for the whole feminist enterprise. And it's been miraculous in how much money they have managed to get governments to give for what is a totally distorted view of this complex sexual problem. We've spent $3 billion over the last decade in Australia on domestic violence, most of which going to this totally erroneous notion that we have to address misogynist attitudes to cure domestic And it's absolutely wrong.
As a matter of interest, we often hear that domestic violence doesn't discriminate, that it occurs amongst the affluent. I hear that said often, as well as the poorer members of society. But you've actually, I think, indicated that, in fact, it does tend to concentrate with less affluent socioeconomic communities. Can you explain the link between domestic violence and socioeconomic conditions, and why it's important to understand this aspect of domestic violence?
This is what, if you look at research, it's very clear that it is related to
You can see the it's gone. You can see 188. Why is it on them things? So it shows that it's not the internet, it's there doing it in the game. Right? That's what it shows, because it would seem they either didn't expect that like that, or they don't want to do it through the internet. You get me? For some reason, because I reckon Talk would see, because Talk obviously have your account. Talk would see it and wonder, why is your internet that bad? So they're not doing it through the internet for that reason, because the lie has to be done in an inconspicuous way. So, i.e., it doesn't show on your internet. They do it through the console. You know what I mean? Because they can just lower how many things goes to the console. Obviously, the console decides how much internet. It's like power sockets, isn't it? So in the amp in a power socket, yeah, in the amp in a power socket, it, it's allowed. The amp is allowed to take 220 volts. In Jamaica, it's 110, isn't it? So the voltage in Jamaica is 110 volts. And that's just how it works, isn't it? They probably can use 220 too, but they choose to use 110 because I think America uses 110 as well. Because we've got we don't have the three prongs that you use over here. We don't have the top one. We only have the two side ones. Yeah. So I think the top one is to allow the 220. So just like how they can regulate the voltage that goes to your system, the internet works pretty much the same thing. So look at the latency now, 248. I'm not even playing the game, bro. Why is it going up to 248? You get me in it. So is that guy still sit there waiting? No. Yeah. So all of these things, it's just like your phone. Your phone don't use 220 volts. It will fry the fucking phone into nothing. None of these devices in the house use 220. Why they use 220 here is to ensure you've got a stable fucking finger. Because they use nuclear reactor and power plants and stuff like that. So nuclear power plants, they've got windmills and all type stuff like that, innit? And energy farms and solar that. But they use nuclear power plants here to do it, innit? Like big countries tend to use that, innit? So obviously, in order for them, they use the 220 because it's stable. You get me in. That's what they use it for. So every plug has that little amp in there. The little amp inside the plug regulates all them things in it. So it doesn't allow more than enough electricity to go through any circuit at any one time. Innit? So that's why they say, that's why they keep warning people about fake plugs and fake amps in it. Is because them fake amps would send too much power to you and cause a fire in it. Because your device is not going to use 220. So these fast charger things that they're coming up with here, that's why, is because what it's normally meant to take, it's charging it in half the fucking time, innit? That's why them chargers burn out so fast. Is because it's charging in half the time. Why? Because it's letting through more power than it should. So it fucks with the phone, it overheats the phone because there's just too much power going through it. So if 110 takes an hour to charge, you can just say basically 220 would take half an hour, 20 minutes. You get me? You leave it on there, you leave them fast chargers longer than the hour that the 110 would take to fully charge that device. You're looking at potential fire, innit? Or your phone malfunctioning at some point. But these guys can't win, you get me, innit? Because what they're saying is the reason. I can say, nah, you don't know the background story. Why are you just judging me? You know what I mean? Because that's not how the law works. You know what I mean? I don't know fuck all about no kangaroo court shit. I don't give a fuck about that. The law does not apply to that. And that's why they have to hide. Because the law does not allow them or facilitate them to do that. Because it's obvious it has to be maliciously based where you don't get a chance for your side of the story. For a little Jimmy and little Tom from down the fucking road is gonna have the same issue, but all of a sudden the police wants to hear his version of events. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So that thing with Everhard, I can't remember that girl that a policeman killed in London, yeah? So why did they give him a chance to answer? Why did you not just take him into court and then fuck him up in the court without him ever saying nothing? Why? Because they intended on prosecuting. That's why. When they don't intend on prosecuting, where they just want to fuck your life up, no courts get involved because the courts will rule against it. Mm. Because of me, they're hardly making these domestic abuse claims anymore. Real people who actually get abused have been caught up in the situation, and they real people who are actually abused actually are less likely, statistically, are less likely to have their cases heard in court and the police do anything. But you have some cases, oh, some random person comes and says, oh, they've been sexually assaulted, abused. 5 days and you're in fucking court, bro. Because it's malicious, because people within the establishment want you to be done. Yeah, it's so true. It's true that they do, isn't it? I ain't scared of no white man, bro. I don't give a fuck what kind of rainbow society you have going on here. What the color range of you people involved here. Ain't doing that to me, bro. I don't know what you know, but the fall like me that you want me to blindly fall off that precipice didn't happen. I'm gonna jump off that bitch though. I'm gonna jump off that, trust me. I ain't walking over there blind. I'm gonna know that it's down there's a precipice. I'm gonna jump off that shit, bro. Because if I don't get justice, you people not gonna like it. And I know you people ain't no fighters, but I can tell you that. I'm very sure of that. So you have a problem. You people definitely have an issue here. You definitely. Somebody's telling the police to ignore it, whether ignore my cries or ignore the prosecution. They're obviously going to ignore the prosecution because they'd lose and it will come out what these people actually did and that they ruined my life for the last 15 years and I had fucking no idea that it was going on because there has been not been one appeal lodged against any of these situations. Not one appeal. You know what I mean? Not one. I've been into the court once. I can't remember some shit to do with my license. Yeah, some shit to do with my license at one point. I ended up in this little courtroom like near. I had to drive over the Silver Bridge. What's that place called? It's like Greater Manchester, innit? Well, it's like after Liverpool, that part of Greater Manchester. I can't remember what that's called, is it? Yeah. I've been into some court there about some license issue. That's the only court I've ever been into. And the judge gave back my license. I don't know what. I can't remember what the situation was because nothing really happened. He just, I told him whatever, and he said, "All right, keep your license." I was like, "All right, yeah, cool." I fucked off. I was driving. What was I driving? I was driving the Fiesta. Yeah, I was driving the Fiesta or something. Yeah.
Had a very big survey, international survey run by the University of Central
But like I say, the police have took away one of my property, and this happened in September. We're now December the 25th, Christmas Day, and I still can't get my property. But the officer that took it fucking disappeared off the face of the planet. But he didn't. You meant to get a summary or whatever. The police confiscate your property. He was not a part of any criminal investigation. Well, I haven't received my shit back again. It's human that's gonna lose. But I know that. Everybody knows that. I got proof that he took my shit.
So this is part of the new endlessly expanded definitions of domestic violence. And this is part of what's being used to destroy men's lives around this country. If you go out in our community and talk to lawyers, talk to policemen, being used to destroy men. Our policemen are required to go into homes and the woman can say, I'm afraid violence could occur. And they have to remove that husband's home. He may not see his children for 2 years. And I've had 2 members of the police force do videos with me. One in disregard about what they see as an absolute rort. And the police are required to impose an unjust.
I can't believe I beat my fight with a 1 million.
The Queensland police union.
Look at the ping.
Their own members were being subject to false allegations of domestic violence. And it is being used as a tactic in family law battles across the country.
Is it your view there's an organised approach behind all of this? And who is it?
There's this organisation called Our Watch, which is like the engine room of our domestic violence policies in Australia. And they proudly boast about the fact that their goal is not addressing domestic violence, that they have to get involved in crime and prevention, which means remaking society. This is what they say. This involves a gender transformation
That was a good close.
social, cultural, and structural and systematic change, challenging dominant and forms and patterns of masculinity that operate across structural, systemic, organisational, community, interpersonal, and individual society. They surveyed their members, 2,000 people working in government organisations across the country, towards this goal of remaking our society according to their feminist
Look
ideology.
here.
They proudly state that. And people come to me all the time. I have roles in government departments. I have members of the police force. I have members of the fire brigade. I have women. A teacher the other day who was working in schools for 40 years was around about what boys are being taught, how boys are being taught to be ashamed of themselves. I mean, all these people out there seeing what's going on, and they're coming to me to say, what can we do? And I wish I had. I don't know how to begin to handle this little army of people I've got.
Obviously, it's simple.
Draw public attention to what's going on.
What these guys are doing is very clever. Because it's simple. What to do? You know what to do? Everybody who's concerned, everybody who's affected, turn around and do the same things against them. If they're lobbying against you, lobby against them. I don't see what the big deal on a solution. That's the simplest thing. If a bunch of people, they don't hold any more right than a concerned people, because first world countries have what you call petitions. Yeah. So there's no office in the world. Yeah. There's no office in the world that has more workers than you have citizens. Yeah, you can't do.
Nerds and bots who are digging up the data for me, who are wanting to expose what's actually going on, and
Yeah, I mean,
blog after blog exposing this stuff. So they're free blogs.
there's nobody in the world that can. There's no lobby or group or company that can hold that has more people than the community in it.
Thank you, John.
I mean, that makes it simple. The solution is simple. We have petitions. I mean, there are petitions. Everybody who is concerned, everybody who has been a victim of this system, just do it to them. Does that mean? Just turn around and do it to them. Just all join together. I mean, just all join together and just do it to them. It's simple, isn't it? I mean, that's all you have to do. What they're doing is a simple thing to overthrow. Just petition for them to be removed from the government. That's all. Anybody who's in support of this sort of tactic and this thing, let's have them removed from the government. You can do that. It's simple. They can be removed.
Little boys and girls may lose their nerves.
The same way that they're worried about losing their jobs, you can have them lose their jobs too, as long as you have legitimate reason and you don't prove to be some malicious entity either. Innit? That's it. You just need to make sure that you're no malicious entity. Yeah, I mean, that's all you have to do is ensure that you or yourself are no malicious entity and can prove the things that you're accusing them of. So if they're constantly going around lobbying, if they're constantly going around lobbying against people, i.e., using bureaucracy to tie people up and mistreat them and ill treat them, well, just go. Everyone should just go out and get petitions. I mean, everyone just goes out and gets petitions. It's quite simple. I mean, it's not nothing that it's not nothing that's hard to understand or hard to debug. Just lobby against them, innit? They don't hold any more power than the regular person does. They'd like you to think that. That's what they want people to think. Even police officers want people to think that they hold absolute power. They don't. You see, a policeman can arrest you, but if the case don't mean nothing in that courtroom, you get freed and then you sue the policeman for, I guess, unlawful arrest. That's it, innit? It's simple, innit? Nobody has. This is the West. Nobody has power more than what they can give, and everybody with power can have that power taken away. That's so simple. That's what they want. They want people to think they're powerful people. Everybody with power in the West, in Western democracy, and have that power stripped out to them for the slightest reason. Because even the prime minister can be voted out. It's just that people don't use their rights. I'm no one to talk. I don't really vote and stuff, right? Because I'm not really interested in politics like that. The truth is, if none of this happened, I'd have been out there still smoking weed and fucking pure girl and not caring. I would be like, yeah, but that is true. I really wouldn't have. And they're well aware of that. They're well aware of that. I was still out there fucking girl and smoking weed. I wouldn't have cared, didn't it? So obviously, people pose a significant issue for me and a significant problem. Well, that's what their intention to show me my potential. I don't give a fuck about that. Well, they pose a significant problem for me. And I really talk about my problems. I just deal with them and solve them immediately. And as usual, I solve these comes to me. These guys think they have a lot of power. They don't. They just get paid to do the job that they do. The moment you can volunteer and go and fuck their lives up if you choose. And they're well aware of that. And some of them, they are so blinded by their power that they even forget that. They just get paid to do the things they do. They hold no more power than you. You can simply do it just by free. Go and volunteer to do it. That's the funny thing about this whole game, isn't it? That's the funny thing about this whole thing. They've been lost in this. They've been lost in this. They've been lost in it for too long. They forget. Even the police commission can be voted out if everyone chooses. I mean, people don't exercise their rights because half of them we are too busy with our lives. You get me? And these men forget that. They forget that they don't own absolute power, especially police officers. Can easily be voted out. They just easily. Like I say, I know why it's like to not give a shit and just too busy with your own life, and that's what they use. That's what they use against us. It's us being too busy with our own lives to care about what they do. So you see, many of people get fucked up, but most of us aren't bothered till we get fucked up again. Most of us don't care until we get fucked up, man. I mean, it's just simple how we are, right? It's people, innit? I've been the person to not give a shit about what goes on until, but it affects me, you know? So that's why I'm not too bothered. I'm not bothered about support from people because I also was that person who didn't really give a shit about what happens because it didn't affect me. But when it affects you, you know, I want to bring awareness to it. We're all like that. Everybody is like that. Eh? It's like certain things that happen in society. We all know it goes on, but it just don't affect you, innit? So you just go on with your life. But when it does affect you, you're ready to scream and shout and sound the alarm and snitch. Yeah, because that's just the nature of people. We're all distracted doing living our own lives. You get me? That's why I don't care who cares or who's bothered. Innit? I don't give a shit like that. Because the reality is, I was that person that didn't give a shit either. So I can't go out there and cry that nobody cares. Innit? Uh, no, I can't believe missed it. I've been that person. I still am that person. But obviously, this shit affects me, so it's got to go. I mean, as soon as it's gone, I don't care. I go back to being myself. It's sad but true. As soon as this stop being an issue for me, but I go back to myself. And that's just the reality. I don't care. Yeah, I genuinely don't. The truth is, I don't. If other people want to pick it up and do something about it after, that's their business. As long as my problem is solved, I'm not paid to do this. I mean, I'm doing it because it fucking affects me. The moment it stops affecting me, that's it, innit? It's as if it never happened. That's what's the truth. They say if you're good at something, don't do it for free, innit? As simple as that. I'm very good at it, and I know I'm very good at it. And to be honest, I should have been a detective. But then obviously I'm better than that, innit? No disrespect to any detectives out there, but I could have been a rocket scientist, I could have been a fucking thing I chose in life. How I ended up a pauper. I don't know. That's actually funny. How I ended up a pauper, a poor fucking man in the streets. I have no idea, but couldn't tell you. Really couldn't tell you. I guess these lobbies they were full, innit? That's the end of that for tonight.